Okay, welcome everybody to the council meeting of the town of Santan Valley on January 21st, 2026 at approximately p.m. We'll have the clerk take roll call.
Present. Jenkins.
Present.
Councilmember Tyler.
Present.
Councilmember Wolfert.
Present.
Councilmember Oakes. Vice Mayor Hudgens.
Present.
Mayor Schnapp.
Present.
Right. There's a quorum.
Sounds like a quorum. We will now go to the Pledge of Allegiance, and following the Pledge of Allegiance, we'll have Ken Bell give us an invocation. We'll have Vice Mayor Hudgens lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear God, we acknowledge you. We thank you for this day. And as we meet together as town council members and attending residents, we ask for a clear vision for our community. We also ask for patience as we learn about issues that are set before us and as we continue to put in place foundational operations. We express our gratitude for all that has brought us to this point. May we be wise stewards of the freedoms we enjoy. May we be wise stewards of the opportunities now before us as incorporated town. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ken Bell. Appreciate that. Okay, we will now go to item number 4, which is the approval of minutes. This is the discussion and possible action for approving minutes from the January 7th, 2026 regular town council meeting. Does anyone have any comments, discussion? I do. I think we need to make a clarification in the minutes that the person, the name who gave the invocation is Randon Riffy, not Brandon Ricky. So if we could please make that change, I think that would be appropriate. Other than that, that's the only thing I see that would need to be changed. Any other council member? Council member Tyler, anything?
Mayor, so any motion
No.
could incorporate that change into the motion that's made.
Yeah, so when we do call for, when there's a motion, please clarify the name change for the invocation. So if there's no further discussion or any discussion, is there a motion?
Mayor, I motion that we approve the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. It was January 7th. And update the name from Brandon Ricky to Brandon Riffy.
That would be Randon Riffy.
Brandon Riffy. Poor guy.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
She seconded.
Second.
Oh, sorry. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
No, any opposed? Sounds like the ayes have it. Motion carries. Minutes are approved from the January 7th, 2026 regular town council meeting. We'll now go to item number 5. This is the opportunity for current events, summary of current events from the council. It's for information only, and there will not be any discussion, deliberation, or legal action taken. Does the council have anything to add, Councilmember Hunt?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to announce that Pinal County is doing a summer intern program. This is the second annual program. It's a few months off, but it's for those enrolled in high school, college, or equivalent, ages 16 and up. Last year was very successful for the county. They had 150 applicants, maybe 40 people were chosen. But it gives students a chance to work for about 7 weeks. It's paid. You give them a chance to work in different departments within the county and the judicial system or whatever. They kind of have a preference of what they can work in. But it's happened again this year. It's a little ways off, but in March there will be a posting and the students can apply, and then the interview process will be in April. But it starts in May and goes for 7 weeks, and it's paid. So
Thank you for that. Very interesting. Yes. Councilmember Jenkins.
I do not have anything at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Oaks is not present. Councilmember Tyler.
This past week, I was able to go to there was a meeting about the Resolution Copper Mine out for Oak Flats. There's a lot of good information about those who are in opposition to that mine.
Okay.
Can you
Anything
hear?
else? Are we losing him in and out? Sounds like Councilmember Tyler, we're losing you in and out. You're kind of in and then you're out. I don't know if your internet connection is good or not. Let's
It's bad right now. I'll just chime in later.
well, now's the opportunity with this opportunity. So, what we
I'm
heard is
okay.
that you went to the copper resolution meeting.
Yeah, I'll just pass for now. I know Rupert was also there, so he can probably give a better update.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Councilmember Wolford.
So yeah, the last few weeks since the last meeting, I'm pretty busy. Real quickly, I just wanted to mention that I did go with our town manager to the Arizona Association for Economic Development's legislative luncheon. They had Asian food, which was pretty good, but it was a really awesome event to be able to see some of our legislators as they launch this new legislative session. I know some of you are really eager to see what's on the legislature's docket, and there are a few bills that do have some significance for us here in Santan Valley as a new town. So again, we will be watching closely and making sure that we connect with the proper folks to ensure that they hear our voice when it comes to some of those measures that are on the docket. Again, just to reiterate with Councilmember Tyler, again, we did go to the Resolution Copper Town Hall over at J.O. Combs Middle School. A very interesting event. Again, just kind of detailing the potential impact for the copper mine. Again, we all agree we definitely do need to do our research and kind of understand the full extent before we address any other issues. On a more enlightening note, today the Arizona League did a call with many of the cities and towns regarding the America 250 celebration. And it kind of struck me really, really personally to think 250 years ago, 13 small colonies decided to quote unquote incorporate. So if they didn't, we'd still be under the county of King George. It's really touching to see Arizona feature so prominently in those festivities and the celebrations. And, just us here in Santan Valley, we are that laboratory in a sense. 250 years later as a country, we're still growing, we're still thriving. So as we get ready for this, oh my gosh, I'm going to chop this up, a semi-king centennial or other event. Oh my God, I'm so old, I need a drink of water. But anyways, to really pay attention to those, we've got a great country that we live in. We got a little slice of paradise here. So as we launch those festivities, just think about it. We are America, and I'll leave it at that. But aside from that, tomorrow there's going to be J.O. Combs meeting I'll be at. And then I think one more thing coming up as well, but keeping very busy. Yes, we're going to be getting a tour next Thursday at ASU Polytechnic with the county, and that should be fun. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolford. Vice Mayor.
Just I mentioned this last meeting. I want to mention again, the mayor and I are speaking at an event that Goodman's putting on this Friday morning at the Combs Unified School District. So if you're free, you want to come out, I think they're calling it a fireside chat. I don't know if there'll be a fire. We'll see.
Hopefully not us.
Yes. Yeah. And so if you guys want to come out, it'd be just a great way to connect with other members in the community. There's a lot of businesses that show up, nonprofit groups, events, all that sort of stuff. And you can hear a little bit more off the cuff from us about what's going on in the town, what we're hoping to see, and all that stuff. So I'd love to see you there. And then Poston View High School reached an A rating. I went a few weeks back and celebrated with some of their teachers. Now they're going to celebrate with the students because they were a big part of that as well. And that's going to be on January 27th that they're going to be doing this special lunch. So.
Thank you. I had the opportunity to be invited by our legislative district representative Neil Carter to be at the opening of the legislative session 57, I believe it was. And I was introduced, so everybody knows that Santan Valley is now a municipality, being introduced as the mayor of Santan Valley. So that was a great opportunity because the room was filled with a lot of variety of different people there, from mayors to legislators to the governor. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay for the governor's remarks. I had received a personal medical call that I needed to attend to. So, but it was a good opportunity. Word is out, Santan Valley is here. So that was a good opportunity to be there and be a part of that. So with that, we will move to item number 6. Oh, wait. Yeah, we got everybody. Item number 6, this will be the town manager report, which is a summary of current events, and it says informational only. There won't be any discussion or deliberation or action, and our town manager, Brent Billingsley, will give us an update.
Thank you so much, Mayor, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members. As usual, I'll try to keep it brief, but there's a number of things that I think are important to discuss. First of all, the town intends on having a council strategic planning retreat at some point here in the near future. And I just wanted to check and see if everybody got their packets today. That's a win. So please, if you get a chance, go through that packet and get us back the information so we can use that to plan the retreat. As the mayor just said, the legislative session kicked off, and so have the legislative meetings with the league and the Pinal County governments and the CSA and all of the different groups out there that do the lobbying arm of the state, APA and many others in the state. The two bills, I guess the two topics, they have multiple bills that seem to be rising to the top. One of them is agendized on today's meeting for later, and I will address it. And that has to do with the PRTA funding. But it's important to know that after the loss of Goldwater, the PRTA funding was to be refunded if possible, and the process was set forth by the state to do that. I did check today. The remaining balance is somewhere around $45 million. And we have until the end of April for any request for refunds to take place. And so we're having a conversation now at the legislative level about what to do with those funds. That's the item that's on the future of this agenda. The second one that seems to be a very important topic, especially to our sister cities, is food taxes. And this was a hot item in last year's legislative session as well for cities and towns. As a matter of fact, it's been pushed to the ballot, and that is called HCR 2018. But another bill is being run in this legislative session as well, called House Bill 2839. We're so early in the session, we don't know where it's going to go. These bills have just been dropped and assigned to committees, but those seem to be the two hot topics for our sister cities and towns in Pinal County. We'll keep an eye on those for you and report back. Next topic I have is we're currently scheduling interviews for 5 open positions with the town. And it looks like as of today, we have all the interviews scheduled. So we'll be having interviews over the next 3 weeks for those various positions. Our lease was approved by Pinal County today, and we have a number of representatives from Pinal County out in the audience. Want to thank you for that. Following that approval by the Board of Supervisors, we then had meetings this afternoon with Pinal County, specifically the manager's office, their IT group, and their facilities group to get us ready. The next thing will be key cards and cutting us keys and working on furniture and equipment for the town in the space that's directly adjacent to where we're sitting now. So very exciting day. Another one of those firsts for the town of Santan Valley, and we plan to move in on February the 2nd. And another item that I wanted to bring to everyone's attention is there was a meeting today. Oftentimes we've heard folks come during call to the public and talk about transportation and safety. As everyone knows here, there's a presentation from Public Works this evening from Joe and Celeste. But I had the pleasure of being able to attend a meeting today. Ms. Karen was on that meeting as well to discuss the Pinal County 2025 Strategic Transportation Safety Plan. And I went ahead and sent a copy to all the council members today. I'm going to ask Garrett to put the link to that particular document on our website as well. But if you want to find it and you want some reading material tonight, if you go to the SCMPO, so that's the Sun Corridor Metropolitan Planning Organization website, the study is actually there for you to review. And it has a list of projects, including some projects in Santan Valley that were identified as safety concerns. The last thing that I have is it's a great pleasure to say we now have around $8.8 million in the bank for Santan Valley. We can't spend it, but we have about $8.8 million in the bank. And that's a very large increase from our last meeting, which is received with some controversy because we got $4.9 million in transportation or transaction privilege taxes last week. And that means that the pies don't get any bigger. It's just another slice out of the pie. That means that every other city in town in Arizona loses TPT because we are receiving our TPT, but it's good for us. We've got some money in the bank, and that's going to give us some ability to do the things we need to do in the near future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Brent. There's a lot of things happening out there and yet to come, so stay tuned. But we're excited to have a place to call home for a short while at least. Okay, this will move us now to item number 7. This is business before the council. We'll have item number A, possible adoption of resolution number 2026-04, calling the 2026 town election. This will be a consideration and possible action to adopt the resolution that will establish the 2026 election dates, offices to be filled, candidate filing deadlines, voter registration deadlines, and other related election matters, and authorization for the town clerk to coordinate with the Pinal County elections as required. And we will have that given by the, looks like the town clerk and both, that would be Garrett, and our town attorney, Alan. So who's taking it away first?
Mayor, council members, although the council's already acted on matters that will appear on the ballot, as you're aware, we've already approved some ordinances calling for some elections. There's this additional statutory requirement to make this formal call of the 2026 elections. And so this resolution is designed to meet those legal requirements and is before you for your consideration.
All right. I have nothing to add. You summed it up great. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
If Garrett didn't have anything to add, then you know it's Clad, since he works with the Pinal County Elections Department. Okay, so we've had this. We had an opportunity to look at it and read it in our packets. Is there any discussion or motion?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution number 2026-04, calling the town of Santan Valley's 2026 primary and general elections and establishing statutory figures as presented.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. The ayes have it. Okay, we'll go to item number B. This is a presentation on transaction privilege tax. This will be by Bill Copy and Pat from Pat Walker Consulting.
Test.
This is an overview of transaction privilege taxes, TPT, including TPT structure in other towns and cities and potential fiscal and community impact for Santan Valley. Bill, take it. The opportunity is yours. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Vice Mayor, council members. So my name, for people in the audience and online, my name is Bill Copey. I'm one of the financial consultants that the town hired, I don't know, a couple months ago. So we're here just as a staff member, I guess, for throughout till until you get fully staffed. So myself and Pat Walker was at the last council meeting, talking about budgeting, talking about revenues and expenditures, expenditure limitations. So tonight, my part is going to be transaction privilege taxes and what the impact is on the community. I do want to clarify one thing. So Brent mentioned that, and you were mayor, you're at an event where you mentioned that Santan is now officially incorporated. So the money that was collected is state share revenues. So it's the state shared portion of transaction privilege taxes. It is not part of the presentation we're doing tonight. So they're two entirely separate buckets. I just want to make sure everyone doesn't think that you already implemented a tax that's already in place. So you have not. So you're just at the very, very early stages of that process. So my goal tonight is to try to provide information for council to decide whether or not they want to go forward with implementing a tax and talk about, some of the reasons why, it's, as you'll see, pretty much every town and city in Arizona has some type of transaction privilege tax. So my goal is to give you the information. If at the end we are kind of looking for direction, if you want to proceed, I would definitely have you bring Lee back, and start that conversation with the league. And because there's a lot of steps in the process, it's about a 4-month process to implement a rate. And I'll just hit some of the topics that I probably was going to discuss later, but it always has to start the first day after end of a quarter. So it's not like you can just pick a day and say, okay, taxes go into effect. The league really kind of likes a June 30th or July 1 or January 1, because a lot of businesses only file on a calendar year, so they only file once a year. So it really makes it hard when you start going in the middle of a quarter or middle of fiscal year, but they will allow it. So you can go July 1, October 1. So those are the only days you can implement a new tax rate. Okay. So I know Lee was before you. Oh, and I did want to point out, Mayor, I did listen to the last presentation or the last council meeting. So I did hear your comments. So I have 12 slides. So, all right, I just want to let you know. And 2 of them, about 4 of them are introductions. So, it's going to be quick. It should be quick.
There's no trap door this way.
No. I keep looking over my shoulder. I'll keep looking over my shoulder. So tonight, the purpose of the presentation is really to talk about the TPT process. But, what is a TPT? How is it different from a sales tax? I'm just going to hit over these really quick because Lee did a very thorough presentation as it relates to this. And so I got about 3 slides that I'm just going to kind of go over real quickly. So really the heart of the discussion to me is going to be the second bullet point. So we're talking about the TPT structure, comparing it to other towns and cities, just to give you a perspective as to, the wide array of different types of rates that exist currently out there. And then last but not least is the impact of the town and the community, but also so its residents and businesses. What impact will that have on them? So what is a TPT? Again, it's, as we go through this, I'm sure a lot of you are all familiar with the sales tax, and I got another slide that shows sales tax. TPT, sales tax. After a while, you're going to look at these and go, well, they basically sound the same. And in reality, for the most part, they kind of are the same. So, but by definition, transaction privilege taxes is taxes levied on the privilege of doing business. So it's not so much on the purchaser, the person buying the goods and services, but it's on the business responsibility. So unlike sales tax, the tax liability falls with the business. Now, most of the time you'll go when you buy anything, you can see the tax. The consumer is paying the tax. There are, on occasion, you'll see someone having a liquidation sale or a year-end sale and say, no sales tax paid. Well, you go buy an item for $100, you pay $100. That doesn't mean that the business does not have to pay that tax. So the business would have to take $9 or whatever from that and still pay the state. So that's about the only time I've ever seen kind of anything like that, is those type of unique sales. Typically, you'll always see it added on the end of your bill whenever you go and buy anything. Variable rates, we'll get into this a little bit. I don't know if anyone sent, if you have received a copy of all the different tax rates within the state. So if you haven't, we can send you if you're interested. It's about, 52 pages worth of tax rates and everything. So you can just see all the different components, and I'm not going to touch like on the main categories, but as you look into some of these cities, you'll just look at it. It's like, it's amazing how many different things you can tax or not tax. And so if you're interested in that, we'll send that to Brent or Alan, and you can forward it on. Right now, unfortunately, I'm hoping this number is correct. I know of only one newly incorporated city. So I'm going to go with 91 on 92 cities. And I think we can kind of, guess who that one city might happen to be. So not going to mention names, but so the administration is by Department of Revenue. We call it ADOR, and then a model city tax code. That's really where Lee's going to come in and say, okay, what do you want to tax? What's your tax rate? What categories do you want to apply a tax in? There's so many different components of a tax rate that you're going to have to, unfortunately, you're going to have to spend a little bit of time talking about the different components of a tax rate. It's not, everything is 2%, and I'll show you some examples here tonight. So again, it's kind of the difference between a sales tax and a transaction privilege tax. Again, sales taxes are charged to consumers, collected by the seller. TPT is basically imposed to the business, and it's for the right to operate. So, but in reality, they pretty much, for the average person, they're going to look exactly the same. So whose responsibility? Again, I kind of just touched that just now. Businesses are responsible regardless if they charge a tax or not. The privilege, I like the privilege. I guess I like the word privilege because I've said it enough times there. So here's where they're starting to get into the main presentation. So why do we go ahead and why do cities go ahead and implement a tax rate? As you'll see, and I only picked a handful of cities, but as you see, it's a main source of revenues for those cities. Now, Santan is unique in the fact that newly incorporated cities typically don't come with 100,000 people, give or take. So I think I did research, and I think there's only one other city in Florida, I believe. That was slightly over 100,000 people that incorporated. So you're out there kind of on your own and kind of new. So, but then as a result, so Alan mentioned, or I mentioned that we got the report today. Finance directors got the report also, and they saw how much money they actually lost due to the fact that Santan gained the money. So, you know, there are a lot of people in a finance world that probably don't look too kindly to Santan at this point, but you know, so be it. You know, it's to our benefit, and you know, they'll get over it. So, but you know, so you're coming in with around $50 million state share revenues, give or take 45 to 50 million, depending on your population. Sizable amount of money, no doubt about it. After a year or so, you're going to see that that money is just pales in comparison to the costs associated to running a city. You know, with the sheriffs, public safety is very expensive. I don't know anyone that wants to say that it's not. I've worked with enough cities. Public safety is expensive. So your sheriffs and police and fire and everything. So, you know, those are things in addition to maintaining streets. You know, we have libraries up here, but you're part of the county. So you may, unless you want to go out to your own library, but you have parks and you have all of these amenities that you want to provide that maybe the residents are currently asking for that they currently don't have. They all come with a large price tag. So I just wanted to let you know, $50 million, part of that's for highway user revenue fund. You can't really touch that other than for street maintenance. So that money is kind of off the table for the most part. But you really, you know, it's important. Most, you know, 91 out of 91 cities wouldn't have implemented a tax rate if they didn't think it was important for their city to grow and continue to grow and provide those amenities and services. So current rate, the state is 5.6. That's the one that Brent was referring to. County for Pinal, 1.1. So I got here a little bit early today. So I decided to go to a grocery store and see if they were charging the correct rate. So I went to a couple grocery stores. I went through, and I also went to I got receipts to prove that it's calculated right. I also went to one of your finer fast food establishments. Spent the entire $10 there, so it was a very fine meal. But so I do want to point out, you know, you are paying 6.7%, the two added together. So, you know, it really, if you're going into a business, it's that location, wherever that business is located. If you're ordering something online, it's your address. So wherever your address is located. So, and then even after you're incorporated, there's still unincorporated pockets still in the county. You know, they could go by, you know, Queen Creek, or they could go by Santan as a mailing address or whatever. In reality, it's really what your address is and what will determine what tax rate you pay if you're ordering something online from Amazon or something. So that's where that comes in. So right now, you know, I can assure, because I have two samples here, that they are paying the correct rate at those two establishments I went to. So
we're not yet set up to do reimbursements, Bill.
no, that's okay. No, that's all right.
Just say.
I know. I had to buy something anyway, so I figured, well, I might as well go check it out and see. So, so then on top of that, though, here are some of the towns and cities in Pinal County and what they were charged. So, like for Apache Junction, they're 2.4 to 3.4, and so you would have 5.6, 1.1, and then you would have the 2.4. So there would be a total of 9.1 on the low end. and then 10.1 on the high end. Maricopa, you can see on the high end, they're 12.2. So, it depends on, and I got a slide here that'll show the breakdown here in a second, and a lot of it is due to new housing construction where the differences are. So now I'm getting into some of the good stuff. So TPT rates by city, town, by category. So this is just a small portion of the categories. I picked some of the more popular ones because everyone kind of recognizes those. After a while, you'll start looking at something, I don't know what that is. So I kind of left those off. Contracting is housing, new housing construction. So you sell a house, you have to pay tax on a new home. If you resell a house, you don't pay on that, but it's a new home. And it's not like, I'm buying a house for $300,000, I'm paying tax on it $300,000. Not that simple. So there's deductions and there's things you can subtract from that. So it's a fraction of that cost that you're paying a sales tax on. That is a one-time revenue. So that's one of those categories that, if you implement a tax rate, you start collecting any money from new housing construction, you want to make sure you're using that money for one-time expenditures. You don't want to use it for paying salaries. You don't want to use it for things that are reoccurring, electricity, because that money could go away. Because it's all based on economy, based on interest rates, based on the housing, what the market is like, supply and demand. But you can see some of the other rates. Hotels, I don't believe you have any at this point, but you can just see how they vary. So if we look at Queen Creek, they're at the far right. Housing, they jacked it up. They're at 4.25. Now, the one thing you have to be careful on this. So one of the items is impact fees. Anything above your normal rate, they have to take that into consideration as to bring down the amount of impact fees you can collect. So if you decide to go, say you decide I'm going to go with I'll just use there's 2.25% tax rate. That's to be same as Queen Creek. And then you want to go up and do a 4.25 for housing. That additional 2% would have to be taken into consideration when you're calculating your impact fees. So that's something. Restaurant bars, it varies. You can see Apache Junction 2.4, and then some of the other ones 5, 4. They're kind of all over the board. The one retail food for home consumption, that's one line item. There are some cities that do not charge a sales tax. The state does not collect. So on my receipt, anything that's considered food, the state does not collect a sales tax on that. Majority, a lot of cities do though. Especially growing cities that are starting up, that is their revenue, strong revenue base, because they don't have the other retail in place. You got a Home Depot, that's good. You got Walmart. A lot of Walmart sales are food. And if you go with a 0%, then you're capturing only a part of your Walmart sales, because they'll make sure that food is not taxed. So when you look at your receipt, you can tell on there what's taxable and what's not taxable. So it's something for consideration, something to think about, but it's going to be it's just going to be one question of many that Lee would have to probably address and answer for you. Yes, sir.
I'll be very loud because I don't have the microphone, but I'm sure it can pick me up from here. When Maricopa was a brand new city, it very much was cognizant of the importance of development paying its own way. So it was an early adopter of development impact fees, which I know we have an item on today, but also transaction privilege tax with respect to construction activities. They would not have a police station, a city hall, any of that infrastructure now if they did not adopt that TPT rate specifically on the construction items and then set that aside for those future improvements that were necessary in that city. We were able to fund purchasing the property for both Copper Sky Park, the property for the City Hall complex, and then build City Hall, council chambers, and the first real police station in Maricopa with one-time revenues from TPT construction tax. I thought that was interesting information.
So on this slide, revenue impact, from a finance perspective, these are kind of slides that we like to talk about because we have dollar signs and numbers other than just words. So this is, I think, excuse me. I picked around 7 cities, I believe. So you can see it's general fund only. So I didn't take in HERF into consideration. HERF, excuse me. So it's for this current fiscal year, 25-26. So the top part starts with population. And I only threw Avondale in there, it's West Side, West Valley, but it has a higher population. So it has around that 96,000 population. And these numbers were from July of 24, I believe. So their number could be pushing closer to where Santan currently is. So I kind of gave you just an overview of all the different cities that are highlighted here, and there's many, many more. The top part is basically the revenue. So you can see TPT right now for, let's pick Apache Junction, 29, almost $30 million. Their state share revenues are $17.8 million. Other revenues are permitting revenues, Parks and Rec, things like that would be in their interest income. Interest rates are fantastic right now. So that would also be a major component there. And then we have a number of employees. So Apache Junction, just in the general fund, has about 400 employees, and then a total budget of about $60 million. So you can just see, just on state share revenues alone, they would not be anywhere near able to operate as a town or as a city. And some of these other ones, like Avondale, they have 56 million, but they actually have 28 million that they dedicate for special, I think it's public safety. So it's set aside in a separate fund that they don't even use for operational purposes. So they're at about $80 million, $85 million total PPT revenue. So, but they have car dealerships, they have Costco. If you get a Costco, boy, you're on the map with a Costco, let me tell you. So everyone looks for a Costco. So, but it's you can just see how much money that brings in compared to where their budget is. You have 250 million just in a general fund, and they have 555 employees. So this kind of just gives you an overview. Some of the, a few cities have a property tax, primary property tax, which can be used for general operations. The one that's big is Maricopa. They have a very high tax rate for their $17 million. So it just kind of gives you a comparison of, what the state share revenue brings in compared to what their budgets are. So the effect on businesses, business, it should be very, very little. They already are paying the state. So all they would have to do is just add an additional tax to it. So whatever that is, years and years ago, some cities actually collected their own tax rate, their own taxes. So a city would mail business a tax bill, pay your bill. They would then send it back to that town or that city for them to basically deposit all the money that's being collected from all the businesses within that town. That was very confusing. That was, there was so many people complaining that they were actually going at one point talking about a statewide sales tax. One sales tax, that's it. So what they did is they removed all of those responsibilities from the towns and said, nope, you're not allowed to do that anymore. It has to all go through the Department of Revenue. once that happened, then basically the filing of businesses became a lot easier. So it should be a very minimal effect for businesses. Residents, again, if the rate is 2%, say, and I'm not trying to steer toward any rate, I'm just keeping the math simple for me. So if you buy a TV for $500, you'll be paying an additional $10. So it is an increase. It is a tax. You know, it's a word that people don't typically like to hear, but hopefully they'll be utilized and put to good use. Economic development considerations. Every city has one, and so a developer who comes to you says, "Oh my God, you're charging 2%." They should be accustomed to that because every other city is doing it already. So hey, don't go look at someone else that's 3.25% or 5%. You know, so that should not even be a consideration anymore. But I wanted to bring it up because especially on impact fees, sometimes you'll get the developers coming in and go, "Oh my God, you're charging me these huge impact fees." Well, so are a bunch of other cities and towns in Arizona too. So, and then a big part, of course, is the awareness, this getting out, communicating to the residents. You know, not maybe what the needs as a growing city. What was this money be used for? You know, how is it calculated? Things like that. So making not only businesses, but the residents more aware and understand what a transaction privilege tax is. It could be kind of confusing, but it really isn't, and it's very straightforward. So I guess the conclusion, it's, you know, if you're going to ask a finance person, it's very important, but I know you're not, so I'll kind of skip that part. Again, understanding taxes. If you do proceed, again, you know, we can definitely help in that process, making sure everyone fully understands the impact and things like that. So, and again, would be with Lee. And so then the last part is really comes up to the policymakers, you know, council to try, you know, what is your, I guess, what would you like staff or Alan and Brent to start doing is really the next part of this process. So especially since I said at the beginning, it's a 4-month process. So if you wanted to try to hit July 1, you would almost have to do it now. Start meeting and sitting down and going through losing a few brain cells over this discussion. So but with that, I am done. I'll answer any questions.
Thank you, Bill. Do council members have any questions? Yes.
Mayor, if I may.
I think that.
Just for my clarification, because I'm new to all this finance stuff with this, but looking at the information you have different municipalities, different populations. I would imagine there's lots of different variables here, a lot of different strategic goals. When it comes to the industry groups, what is the motivator on the rates? I see between 1.8, sometimes 0 up to 5. What's a common motivator or rule of thumb that a town would go with? Do they have a higher rate to try to discourage certain industries, or do they have a lower rate to try to attract them, or what is a rule of thumb?
Well, I mean, that's a great question. I think it's a combination of both. So one of the things that we would want to do is kind of get an estimate. So we'd work with, get with the league and get with the state Department of Revenue and say for the incorporated areas of Santan, you know, trying to get, because they have to file a business license, they have to pay the taxes. Anyone who operates within that incorporated area is still currently paying taxes. So we could try to figure out the mix of those businesses. Is there a lot of restaurants? Is there not very many restaurants? You know, so you would have to kind of look at that mix and to determine what kind of rate you would want to implement. Because what you don't want to do too is go too high and they go, okay, that drive over to Queen Creek isn't that bad. So I'll just go over there. So you don't want to make it so that, you know, they're going to go over there and waste gas for $2, say $2 or whatever. So you want to be still competitive. You want to look at, you want to look at making it lower in some areas just to try to drive business. If you don't have any hotels, you know, you saw the rates for all the different hotels, you may want to keep it lower. That way to drive those individuals to those businesses to come into Santan to build a hotel. So there's a lot of different factors you could take into consideration when you're coming, but I would probably look at the areas like the, you know, the Gilberts and the Chandlers. I probably wouldn't worry about them too much because they're so big and you know, they have a strong retail base already. And so you want to build your retail base, but you want to do it in a way that, you know, it's going to encourage, to me, it's going to encourage development, not discourage development.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion, comments? I will say that we've had presentations before, and I think what the overarching theme is that when it comes to those kind of taxes, you don't want to be too high, but you don't want to be too low. And we're also hearing that state shared revenues aren't going to be enough. However, I will say, no disrespect to our neighboring cities and towns throughout the valley, but it's about time that the citizens of Santan Valley get to see those tax dollars coming back to this area. So we're sorry that they may be a little chafed, but we've also helped fund those cities and towns for quite a long time. So if you're watching, thank you. But it's time for us to do what we need to do for our area. And so, yeah, with the tax structure, yeah, we want to be careful. We want to be cognizant of the citizens, and we want to implement a structure that is smart, that will help this area and this town to grow responsibly, but we don't want to drain the pockets of everyone in it. And that kind of especially goes to property taxes. I don't think that's something that a lot of people are interested in. So we'll have to be aware of that when the time comes. So we appreciate your insight and the numbers, because it's kind of good, because if you look at these numbers, you'll see that we have a larger populace than what you had shown.
Right.
And so that gives everyone a little perspective of the size that we are compared to these towns, these cities that have been here for quite a long time. And here we are, for the most part. We'll find out when we get our true census data coming out of the exact populace, but we're upwards around 100,000, and that's a lot. So I thought I saw a hand in my peripheral. Brent?
A couple things. First off, one of the items I brought up earlier was food tax. So we may not have the ability to collect a food tax after this legislative session or after the vote in November. And we did, on the call today, check with the other cities in Pinal County. Actually, it was yesterday. And almost all of them have a 2% tax. And they're grandfathered before the bill last year, but that may be one thing that we may not have in our pocket. The second one is we're hoping to get some direction from you guys tonight, and time is of the essence. And the reason I say that is we no vote. We just want to get a consensus from the council that you give us the authority to move forward with further research. And I think secondarily, allow the city manager to spend some money to assist, because one of the things that we learned from Pat and Bill the other day is we may have to enlist somebody, including the state, and may have to pay them so that they can do the research of who has tax numbers in this area within this boundary and what types of taxes do they pay based on their business type, because we don't think any of that information exists where we could just go to it. We may have to pay somebody to pull some of that data to help us make the decision, or to provide you the information to make an educated decision, if that makes sense.
And if I could just add just a little bit is on that. So me and Pat talked to Lee the other day too, and we feel that, you know, we should be able to come up with a general kind of a ballpark figure of the sales tax that are generated, what the sales are within Santan. So we could come up with something. We think we won't know how exact it is until you actually implement a rate and start collecting a rate. But we think we should be able to come up with at least a ballpark figure. So based on my discussions with me.
Including like the rates and.
Yeah, I mean, the
what
rates
we-
will be, so, you know, the thing with the rates is that you'll just start at 1%, 1% will generate X. And then you can just go from there really as to, you know, because the rates are, it's just a, you know, here's your taxable sales of $50 million times whatever your rate is. So you can kind of plug that in based on the different categories. You can plug the different rates to kind of calculate what that revenue generation is. And as Brent has mentioned, right now, if you decided to go with food consumption tax rate higher than 2%, you're restricted. So that one, based on last year's legislation, caps it at 2%. So you couldn't go and say, well, I want 2.5. Well, no, you're not. So,
But what happens, depending on what happens at the legislative level, we may not even.
The way the bill
Yeah.
was written last year, unless things change, we actually can't have a food tax. So it's all dependent upon what may happen this session, and I can't see it getting better for us.
Right. You know, I think right now, last year's bill significantly impaired our ability to do the food tax. And they didn't make a carve out for newly incorporated towns and cities. The legislature thought that the probability of that happening was so minimal, they didn't want to create extra language around it. So that's.
We've been there before. Yeah.
but again, that's where I think Lee would be able to come in and be able to, because he's at the forefront of all of these legislative discussions. He goes before the legislators talking about TPT rates. And so, you know, he's given that same presentation to them as you've received it too. So, so they're well aware of it. They know Lee very well. So that's, you know, I would definitely want to involve Lee in any of these type of discussions.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to, as we talked about, state share revenues, this aren't going to be enough for the essentials that we need for the town. And we're going to have to look into other avenues, other areas, but we'll be responsible about how we go about it and what we try to implement. That's very important to us and the citizens, obviously. So I would think with the council, I would feel that we should give them direction to start the process of going and doing that research and providing the information that will give us the best ability to make a decision based on what's out there and what you bring back or what the experts bring back. So would we be in?
I think that's important. I think really we need to get a good lay of the land in terms of what existing businesses are currently within town limits. And then again, once we play around with those numbers, we can get a better idea of what kinds of businesses we want to start attracting, which are going to give us more bang for our buck, at least help us meet the vision that we all end up coming together on and how we want our town to look. So we really got to start playing around. Again, we got to be more creative now that food taxes are off the table. So again, like I said, it kind of gives us a little bit better idea of where we want to go, who we want to bring in. So I agree. I think we definitely want to get that research, have something to support our direction.
And then to be transparent with everybody. I think that's going to be a good move for us.
You know, I actually met one of these disgruntled finance directors. When he found out I was the incorporation guy, he asked when we were getting our money back, and you know, it's here to stay. It's here to stay with us. And so, you know, I think we have a responsibility to research this and make sure that we're doing our stewardship well financially, knowing with our TPT situation. You know, the state TPT was given interest-free for far too long, and I'm glad those dollars are coming here. But we also have a stewardship responsibility. We can research this, so I think the staff should go ahead and do that.
And again, everyone's kind of familiar with the buzzwords nowadays. Everyone's talking about affordable. So we want to be mindful of our residents. We want to know too that sometimes these burdens fall on us. So we got to be balanced. You know, we gotta be realistic. We want to look at not just the impact of visitors, but also our residents as well. So let's get that information for the town.
I believe Councilmember Tyler has something to say.
Yeah, I have a question. So I know that once we have all this, we have to turn it over to the voters for approval. If the voters come back and not approve what we put forward,
Not
we
on
able to reverse
TBT, Councilmember
not on
Tyler.
TBT?
On property tax, yes. But not TBT.
Okay, I misunderstood then. You know, to go back, I agree with your statement. It's important to move forward with this, to get this data so we can move forward with getting the correct tax rates for everybody.
Yeah, just another quick question. Okay. Yeah, just another question. Are there any other surprises we need to be aware of on the legislative docket?
1,500 bills have been dropped.
Yeah.
And, you know, they haven't really started. I think they started having committee meetings this week. I'll start giving you maybe a bi-weekly legislative report.
Yeah, and we'll need to stick to the agenda as topic and try to focus on that.
Just as an aside, as a joke, any social media taxes we can kind of
I wish.
do. So, yeah.
Oh, Jim.
There are a lot of TBT related bills out there. There's a lot of small ones. So, you know, that could impact us. There's one on utilities and a couple other items, but, you know, I don't know how that would affect how we present our model tax code. I don't know if we just go with what we're gonna do and then the changes might happen later.
It's typically what you do.
What we do. Okay.
We'd make our decisions based on the existing laws and change if we have to.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, with that, Bill, we thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, we're going to move on now to item number C. This is 7C, I should say. This is a presentation from Pinal County Public Works. We have Joe Ortiz. He's with Pinal County Development Services Managing Director, and Celeste Garza, Pinal County Deputy Director of Public Works, to present on this topic. So thank you for being here and thank you for presenting before us. We appreciate what you have to present to us.
Appreciate being here. Hopefully it's working.
Turn that one on.
I want to hand it to him.
Working now, try it.
Testing.
Garrett's on scene.
All right, here we go.
That was a fast response time.
Yeah.
Just left.
If we needed to hand this mic off, we
Wish it
could.
was that easy.
I think he's got it now. Thank you.
$30,000.
Pleasure to be here. As you mentioned, Joe Ortiz. Good evening, council, mayor. Just wanted to do a quick intro on and set the stage for the presentation that Celeste Garza, the deputy director, is going to be doing here in a minute. She's going to be doing the big lift. I'm just doing the setup, and hopefully she can slam dunk it. So just to go over how we approached this presentation when we were asked to come forward. And the objective was more on the general high level overview and presenting all the projects that are out there related to roadway type construction projects within the Santan Valley town limits. Wasn't necessarily to dive into super deep detail on each individual one because there's quite a bit. But I don't want to discourage. Please ask questions if you have. But like I said, I'm not necessarily want to dive into deep detail, but we could probably come back and get this to you, take it, digest it. I'm sure you're going to get questions later after we leave. If that's the case, you can always work it through Brent, the town manager. He has our name, our number. He knows where we live. So he can always get back with us and we can set up another follow-up meeting with our staff and get those arrangements and get those answers for you. But like I said, I don't want to discourage. If you do have questions, go ahead and bring them up. Next item, just a good segue with the TPT and talking about revenue. And with roads, you're always talking about revenue, the special revenue being HERF, LVT, Highway User Revenue Fund, vehicle license tax. That's the big players in this. But you also have the half-cent excise tax that you're probably going to be available for you as well. Just for awareness, Pinal County has already seen reductions in our HERF and BLT related to the incorporation. ADOT is the one that administers and distributes those revenues. So we have been seeing reductions since October. It's a small sample size, so it's tough to get the actual impacts of the totality, but it does give us a flavor for where we're headed. So we're trying to use those numbers to evaluate what we need to do and adjust on our side. And then, like I said, that excise tax itself, that's another revenue source that I'm sure you guys are going to be utilizing. But that's probably something after July 1, I believe. So
It's October.
there you go. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Celeste and she'll dive into the details, but I'll be here to help support her. So
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. My name is Celeste Garza. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director. Can you hear me? Hopefully, maybe?
We got you.
Okay, good. All right, so let's get to the clicker. So let me give you some background to me here personally. So I graduated college in 2004. And I bought a home in Circle Cross Ranch in 2004. So I lived in Santan Valley for 3 years. I drove Ironwood when it was only 2 lanes, Hunt Highway when it still had stop signs. So I wanted to provide some background so that you guys can see some of the revenue that we've kind of invested over the course of the last 20 years as we sit here today. So 2006, you know, we bonded for the effort on Ironwood. We made those improvements all the way from Bella Vista north to US 60. It was about $65 million. And then over the course of the last 10 years, I myself and our team, we put in a lot of effort on Hunt Highway, widening several phases, working on Gansel. The county will have obligation to a bond of a $2.18 million effort to pay that over the course of the last several years, even beyond, you know, your guys' revenues and what you guys accommodate, you know, are planning to use for your transportation. We'll pay that bond until 2034. We've done some improvements to Magma Road. We've also invested in the Meridian Road corridor with the town of Queen Creek. So the way I kind of formatted the presentation was kind of going over a map that hopefully, there we go. So this map is going to be a part of the meeting notes for you all to use and for residents to pull from to look at some of the things that are either underway, we recently completed, or are pending projects that were kind of, you know, things to consider over the course of the next year or so. So let's get into the details here. Combs and Kenworthy is the first project that I'm highlighting here. The county completed some widening on Combs between Kenworthy and Schneff, and also the Kenworthy Queen Creek Watch crossing. It was an investment of about 24 million in developer contributions, highway user revenue funds, development impact fees. And I put some of these funding dollars on there so that when you have your budget retreat, that you kind of put some perspective around how much transportation costs, because it's very expensive. I know the finance director before us talked about public safety, but this one's right up there next to public safety as far as one of your largest capital assets and your most expensive ones. The next project, I just wanted to highlight a couple of our traffic signals. We put in the traffic signal at Gansel and Algarve for Circle Cross and the Encanter community. We also set a temporary signal at Kenworthy and Ocotillo. That permanent signal will get built with the multifamily project at the corner of Kenworthy and Ocotillo. And then, lastly is a little bit older project, but we did some rehabilitation on Hunt Highway in Arizona Farms, set a traffic signal there as well, a temporary traffic signal. Also with our highway user revenue fund and our excise tax, which is our gas tax. For some of the projects that are in design, as far as traffic signals, we've got a signal plan to add Empire and Thompson, Empire and Spring Valley, and then one that will be under construction soon at Gary Road and Don Lane. This is just south of the Walmart property. It serves a lot of the Santan Heights folks that live down there trying to make turning movements. So that one is within the boundary that we will continue to work through, and we've budgeted, and we will build that one hopefully before the end of June. And then another project that we have underway is the widening of Hunt Highway. We often get questions about this one. This one is still within the unincorporated boundary. It is a joint effort with the town of Florence. It's about 35 million that we'll invest over the next 2 years. We're working through some Gila River Indian community acquisitions, and we'll begin the project this summer, hopefully in August, on the south end near Franklin, and work our way up to the Magic Ranch community. And then Skyline Drive is another connection that we're hoping to start construction very soon on. This would be from the Charbray alignment in Circle Cross over to Puzzle, that will put in a new connection, a new traffic signal, and another east-west way for folks to travel regionally through this area. And then our really regional transportation priority that we've tried to focus some effort from the state and legislators on is our State Route 24 extension. We've invested, close to $6 to $7 million on design work to kind of hopefully levy some of our politicians to help us champion this very hefty price tag that you see on the construction dollars there. But once we get it to a point where we've completed the concept report, we'll definitely be trying to apply for federal discretionary grants, possibly some build funds. That the build program is out right now for application, so that might be an opportunity here. So future planning efforts. These are projects that are in the next coming fiscal years that are on our capital plan. Some of them are funded via the excise tax. Some of them are planned funds via the highway user revenue funds. We didn't want to make, we wanted to provide these to you for you to, make some considerations on whether you feel this is where funding should be allocated. Two of those are corridor projects, Bella Vista and Sheff Road. This whole area that we're sitting in today is 30,000 platted lots. So it's a lot of people that are going to be living here that need a regional route, and Bella Vista cannot accommodate it, and neither can Sheff Road. So these are corridor studies that are going to look at what is the alignment going to look like? How much right-of-way do we need? How much would construction cost? So they're high-level overview documents that provide that picture for you all to consider in the future. Gansel Road, it's 20 years old and it needs some rehabilitation. So that was a $2 million maintenance project that we had on the books. Stagecoach Pass, this is a small project just north of here that we were going to do a chip seal project on. Empire, Charbray, and Gary are all also rehabilitation projects that need an overlay. They need the asphalt taken down a couple inches and replaced. It's a heavy maintenance project. There's a lot of traffic signal needs in the area, which I'm sure folks can attest to. The developers surrounding are working on some of those permanent ones, like I mentioned, Kenworthy and Ocotillo. Gansel and El Parque Lane is over south of the McDonald's property on Gansel. south of Ocotillo. Ocotillo and Stetson is another one that's just south of there. Target, the access road on Gounsell Road, I'm sure you all have seen the temporary signal there. The permanent is working through the development process in the town of Queen Creek. And there's several traffic signals related to both that Bella Vista Road and that Schnepp Road corridor that need to get installed sometime in the near future. And then obviously there's a few on Skyline and Gounsell as well. Traffic signals run about 1.2 to 1.4 million each. Safety projects. So our excise tax, we allocate a certain amount of funding to just countywide safety improvements. Several have surfaced in the area, and some of these may have been captured in that Vision Bureau study that Brent had mentioned earlier. Hunt Highway and Walmart, the timing between Gary and signals. I know everybody gets a little backed up in that location, so I think that's one of the things that we had on the books and we'll complete. Gounsell and Combs, we're doing some turn lane striping, which I think was actually done yesterday. But there's some configuration that the Combs School District wanted us to change in that intersection. Gounsell and Pecan Creek, there's a radius there that folks need widened. Taylor Ranch Parkway, there's some signing and curb striping and raised pavement markers. And then Florence Unified School District is planning some school zone enhancement projects, which is basically putting up some feedback signs for folks to slow down during school hours. There's several over here on the right-hand side that are future, planned, whether you guys would like to fund them or not. Bella Vista and Hunt Highway continues to be a problem child with folks making left-hand turns. So that's one you're going to see. Westbrook over on the northern portion of the town, and then various locations along that highway. So I know this is a lot of information, so digest it, and we'll certainly be back. I'm almost certain we'll be back. So our Transportation Advisory Committee, this is our committee that is appointed by the Board of Supervisors. It's a 10-member committee. 2 of those committee members live in the Santan area, and they vote on our excise tax and how it should be funded. There were 16 requests submitted in the town boundary. 96 of those came from that Bella Vista Hunt Highway intersection and a fatality that happened at that location. 11 of those projects are either already on the plan or did not qualify, and 5 of those projects we ranked for the committee. This is considering a budget cycle of fiscal year 29-30. Obviously, we're not in the jurisdiction anymore in the town boundary, so we told the committee that we would certainly rank those 5 projects as we would normally, and then they can be provided to you for consideration for the future. So there's several of those are safety enhancements and a few roadway rehabilitations. The flood control district, I wanted to highlight this. Our county engineer couldn't be here today, but he oversees our flood control district, and just wanted to provide some basic information. The flood district is a countywide taxing authority. It is a secondary property tax that everyone pays. The board of directors is the board of supervisors. Future projects are through an IGA typically. This project in particular that's highlighted in green is a regional drainage master plan, where we're looking at the entire area, all the new development, and seeing whether our old master plan is correct in the way it envisions stormwater management in this area. Go ahead, Brent.
I've been working with the drainage engineer for the county. We're hoping to get him out here on the 4th. And if not on the 4th, he'll be here on the 18th.
Great. Yeah.
Let everybody know.
Because I think we have some questions about drainage here.
Yeah. And what's great is this project has been moving forward, and he now has information he can share. So thanks go to Josh.
Yes. And he'll come in and present some of the findings of that study. I'm sure there's some projects that come out of that study, that some improvements that can be made for the area. So we are happy, Joe and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, I think we will have some questions. So we'll start with Vice Mayor.
I have three. The first one, I was meeting with a lot of constituents in the Solera neighborhood as a subset of Johnson Ranch. Off Hunt Highway there, they've got an exit coming out of the neighborhood that's very unsafe, 55+ community, trying to get out. People are flying down that road. I saw you had additional signals. I didn't see that as an option on there, and I'd like to put that on the record as something that we should consider putting a signal there just for the safety of our senior residents who are trying to come out on the Hunt Highway. The second one is Ironwood Nocatio. I was curious if you guys knew the history. It's not a normal traffic signal. It's one that goes diagonal, the metal pole that goes up and over. I was wondering if you guys know any of the history behind that decision, the reasoning for it.
What intersection is that?
Ironwood Nocatio.
Okay.
Yes, I do. So the Solera intersection, when we widened Hunt Highway, we did a warrant analysis to determine whether a traffic signal warranted at the time in 2019, and it did not. The Solera community does have a secondary access off of Gary, which I know can be a problem child now today. But that's the reason that a signal wasn't planned. But that doesn't mean that another analysis couldn't be done to see if it warrants today. Delays are typically the reason for accidents and high fatality rates. So
Yeah, I appreciate it. I drove it myself as well, and it does feel a bit intimidating when you're coming right out there. But I appreciate that. And if there's a process for that, looking to evaluate, I'd love to.
yeah, I can certainly get that over to you. The upside down staple at Ironwood Nocatio, the reason that it was placed that way is because of the Western Area Power Authority lines that you see that run adjacent to Ironwood. Yes, they can only be so close to a traffic signal, and the reason for the staple is because of that, because we couldn't fit in the luminaires and the heads and everything when we built the widening project.
Great, that's really helpful. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And then the third one is I had sent over to staff some signage in Santan Valley that you can't read the street names because they're melting.
Yes.
And I was going to go drive by to see if those were completed. I know they were put in a queue. I was curious as a status update on when those would be completed.
I do know they're ordered. I don't know if they've been replaced quite yet, but yes, we've got them on order and we're going to get those illuminated street name signs replaced.
Great, thank you.
How are you? I have a question in regards to the big apartment complex on Bella Vista and Gansel, like as far as traffic. I mean, it just, yeah. So I'm just wondering, is there stuff in the, projects in the works? Has it been thought out, like when you did the development agreement with the complex on them providing exits so that they're not all coming out in that already busy area?
Yes, and Chris is probably the best one to answer this question. Unfortunately, he's not here. But I do know that there is a traffic signal that will warrant just north of the Bella Vista intersection where they have the main entrance that's shared by the apartments and the residential, that we were planning impact fees for the future.
Okay.
To build. Yeah.
Right, and they do a traffic impact analysis when they
Yeah.
do that project, so that's something we can look at. to
Okay,
see
so
what-
it'll be time though, probably after
Yeah,
it's filled up. Do you have any idea how many,
Units.
yeah, by chance or no? It just looks like a lot.
Yeah.
So,
The whole town.
yeah. Okay, that's.
Celeste, could you have Chris just shoot me the TIA?
Absolutely.
And either or Harvey's here, maybe Harvey can shoot me the TIA and I'll get it out to the council so you can see.
Yes.
Harvey's hiding.
I'll get the TIA and then I'll get, the way traffic's. Yeah.
yeah, we figure out the units. So.
Thank you.
Any other council members?
Cool question. So again, I just want to have more clarification on, determination of where we put traffic signals versus stop signs. Maybe you can just kind of go into greater detail for us, because I know it's been reflected in past meetings, the need for more traffic safety. You mentioned something again about, traffic and then accident rates. So are there triggers? How can we circumvent that if there's a pressing need? Because they'd use a couple stop signs somewhere if the traffic signals are too expensive. And I see that's coming from sort of north Santan Valley over at the Ocotillo and Ironwood area. We have that median that everyone tries to kind of either race across the road or try to turn in. And then again, with the influx of traffic from the 24, now I feel like it's gotten even heavier. So you have a lot of people trying to maneuver with all this incoming and traffic. So what can we do?
So the regulation for traffic signals and stop signs is federally, mandated. It's a manual uniform for traffic control devices section, and it lists 8 ways that a traffic signal can warrant. And I think it has to meet 3 of the 8 warrants to install a traffic signal. So there's federal requirements that every city, every agency has to meet in order to get those installed. They can't just be, we oftentimes get, just go put up a stop sign to slow down traffic. We can't legally, because folks will then not pay attention to the stop sign. Someone could get into an accident, and then the county's held liable, which future would be the town. So I can get it to you, just because Chris is our county engineer. He's also operates our traffic engineering division, so I can definitely get that information to you.
And really just be able to explain it to constituents. So because it's there's like a myth behind it, I guess. What was that acronym again? The
MUTCD.
Yep.
MUTCD. Okay.
So Celeste, what she said is exactly correct. And so it's all types of traffic control, not just traffic signals. She talked about the 8 warrants for traffic signals. Typically you have to meet a minimum of 2 warrants unless it's a safety warrant. The challenge is, and that's why so much study and engineering goes into this, is installing a traffic signal isn't always the safest solution. It can actually make the situation worse, depending upon the volume of traffic, the signage of the speed, the 8-hour warrant, the 12-hour warrant, 24-hour warrant, the number of pedestrians in the area. But it's the same for stop signs. 2-way stop sign or traffic control intersection versus 4-way. So there's an engineering analysis that you complete that helps make the determination of what is the safest and most pragmatic way to deal with that situation. Then ultimately, we've got the attorney sitting next to me here. These guys and then your risk management folks let you know if it doesn't meet those standards, then you're highly liable if there is a fatality or an injury accident. So perhaps we could have Chris come out another day and kind of talk to us about the MUTCD and traffic signals, because there's such a vast number that exists there. And what typically happens is the county, is part of a development, will have the developer do what's called a traffic signal warrant analysis. And that's usually based on existing numbers with the development, and then future numbers that are regional with the development, to determine when that signal may be warranted. And then oftentimes you do a updated signal warrant study at some interval based on the results of the traffic impact study. So perhaps if Chris could come out and kind of talk us through that, because we do get a lot of questions about traffic signals.
Absolutely.
One more. Thank you guys, first off, just how much you guys have done. I know the circumstances were very difficult with us being an unincorporated community with such a large population. You guys have done the best you can underneath the circumstances, which is why we're glad that we've incorporated and we can start to address some of these things here locally. But just first off, thank you. Because you guys have been in the trenches for so long in dealing with trying to address the transportation issues here in Santan Valley, what wisdom would you pass on to this council, to our staff, how to approach this area, or are there certain things that you would point out? We'd just love to know what wisdom you guys would pass on to the town.
The wisdom I would pass is your next agenda item. Just trying to get development to pay their own way, honestly, yes.
He don't just pull my thunder too. In reality, yeah, you you look at some of the revenue that's gonna be coming in through HERF and BLP, you think, yeah, that's a lot of money, but in reality, the cost of these projects are just enormous. And I think part of our problem that we had in the past as a county was, we weren't out in front of these impact fees to have development pay for their impacts. So we were always playing catch up. You have the opportunity to take it up and run with it. So, you know, the developer's probably hearing me right now. But, that's, I don't know if that's wisdom or not, but.
Smart.
Before we take over the roads, can, the county please pay for on Gamsel Road to time all the lights together, put that.
Should be everywhere.
Yeah, it should be. I know it's an expensive proposition, but I do have a question on Gamsel Road. There's the portion back in the day when Queen Creek annexed, it was a half street takeover. It's still that today. So Queen Creek owns half. And so the county has to work with Queen Creek on road improvements and funding to improve that road and pave and everything.
Correct. Yeah, that's the other point of wisdom is, maybe, whenever you did the annexation, it was done for the purpose that you needed. I got it. But it was done in such a, fast passion that, fast pace that, there are some of those issues floating out there with you. They're half annexation. So we have half the road, you have half the road. You may have, the same thing that we have with Queen Creek. And those end up being problem children down the road. When it comes to planning for infrastructure, whenever there's an accident, who's the lead? It all depends on whose side of the road it happened on. That really creates issues and problems, but yeah.
From a financial standpoint, maybe we'll let you take over all those half streets.
There you go.
No, I'm kidding.
No, but in reality, we sit down with other cities and towns and we walk through these, and it ends up being a partnership, because there's some areas where it would make more sense for this town to take it, but there are other areas where it makes more sense. They're kind of outliers that would make more sense for the county to take it up. So we end up in either transitioning or transferring those right of ways, or we'll enter into some type of IGA with you to define whose authority, who's going to take the role.
So question on Gansel right there where that target is, that's a developer light right now, correct? Who's putting the permanent one? Is that a joint venture between Queen Creek and Pinal County?
Really, it's
Our
developers pushed.
Okay.
There you go. That was one of our
But to
really
maintain
big
it.
peeves with it was a problem because the west side was Queen Creek, the east side was Pinal County. But at the time of development, the development's all on the Queen Creek side of it. So there was a lot of miscommunication on who was going to do what, because in reality, we have a agreement that we are the ones taking the full maintenance of the whole right of way and all the signals in there. So we were able to finally negotiate with Queen Creek and the developer's actually going to pay for those.
Okay. Just because going forward that, that impacts the town, and taking over those streets and working with Queen Creek, I guess it is. Another question in your presentation, you had the future projects. Were those on the books already for Pinal County?
They are on our capital plans.
Okay.
If we were still assuming the town's revenue, right? So I think Joe started the conversation about whether, we would still have the funding those years out, and we wouldn't, because essentially some of those dollars would be going to COG.
Yeah.
It was mainly to put down on paper for your awareness that it was on our radar because the constituents came to us and we found some issues with it. So we just wanted to pass it on to you for your awareness.
And on the projects that are currently in process, come July 1st, it's a different story, but you guys are working hard to get those completed, correct?
We're going to do our best.
Okay, that's important
Get
for
those
the
done
town.
before
I want to
June.
make
Yes.
sure. Ocotillo Road, between Schnepp and Ironwood, that's supposed to be improved and widened, right? Especially at the Kenworthy section. with the developers there?
Yes, with the development.
Because I know
project.
there's a temporary light, but it's going to be a permanent light, but
It will be. And when, I think there's a future agenda item in February where our county engineer and our planning manager are going to come through and go through all of the development and the land use and the zoning. So at that time, he can touch on the status of site plans, commercial site plans, like those multifamily projects, residential subdivisions, where they are in the queue as well, or whether they've been accepted or they're under construction. So that would be a great time to kind of go over some of those construction pieces.
February 18th.
February 18th, that's an important date for us. And I just want to say, I went on, and some of us went on a tour with Supervisor Goodman. And I just want to reiterate the excitement and joy that he had as his little baby of Kenworthy Bridge. Because when it was raining, it did its job and there was no flooding, and he was about as static as you could be to see all those dollars being used properly and finally putting a proper bridge in and not trying to go the different route in the past. So any other questions or discussions? Thank you. We really do appreciate you guys being here and presenting before us. We look forward to some future ones too. Okay. Now, with that, that will bring us to my information go here. That'll take us to item number D. That's a development impact fee study. We'll have that presented by Brent Billingsley, town manager. It's an overview of the proposed infrastructure improvement plan and development impact fee analysis, including scope, timeline, and deliverables. Brent, take it away.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, can you hear me? That was a really good $20 well spent with Celeste earlier. Just kidding, just kidding. But what a great lead in terms of the development impact fee item here. There are so many balls in the air right now for the very limited staff that exists for Santan Valley. But some of those items that are and should be right at the top of that list have to do with sustainability and our future financial health in order to provide and meet the expectations that the voters had when they made the decision to incorporate. One of the key items to have development pay its own way and to support infrastructure is the ability to utilize development impact fees. So I put together a few slides here today. Let's see if it works. There we go. We make sure that's the right one. Yes. So I just have a few slides. I'll go through it real quick. Development impact fees are one-time payments that are for growth-related infrastructure. They're not tied to maintaining existing roads or to improving roads that need to be improved because they're behind the times and they need to be widened. It has to be tied to specifically future needs based on future development. So it's new development, new impact on existing infrastructure. That's usually paid one of two ways. At the start of the building permit process and at C of O or at C of O. Different cities and counties do it a different way. But the important thing is those funds are not available before the house is put in. You get those funds in the rears, and Joe was kind of mentioning that before. So it's a revolving fund specifically for regional improvements that have to be identified as part of a study. It can't be used for operations. It can't be used for maintenance. It can't be used for replacement. So for example, for entities that have a public safety impact fee for fire and police, they can't replace an old fire truck or old used up police cars are trying to replace Crown Vics from 2001. Can't be used for that. It can be used for new cars because new officers are required, because there's more police required because the population grew. That's the importance about development impact fees. It's not a tax. It's more of a contractual relationship that's based on state statute, and it exists in a number of states. Arizona isn't the only one, and Arizona didn't invent development impact fees. you have to show a need. So as part of it, you have to actually do a study to determine what the need is and to focus on the investments that are going to be made and what we call level of service, which I'll get into next. They have to have a benefit to the payer of the service. So if it's for transportation, you need to show the developer that's building the 30,000 houses that Celeste said, that those funds that are collected go to regional improvements to benefit the residents of those 30,000 houses. And it has to be proportionate, which means it has to be tied to real dollar amounts. So on the transportation side, for example, the cost per lane mile has to relate to cost per lane mile of actually doing that construction in today's dollars, if that makes sense. Now, level of service. Many of you may be familiar with level of service based on transportation discussions. And oftentimes when we do studies on the transportation front, we say level of service A through E. It actually goes to E, not just to F like our grades in school. But as you can imagine, A is really good and E is not moving at all. So what we have to do is determine what the existing level of service is and what it takes financially to maintain that level of service over time. Why development impact fees? Infrastructure capacity is essential. There's no better example that could be used than Santan Valley. I've worked majority of my 30-year career in Arizona and in Pinal County. And I do recall what happened in 2007, 2008, and 2009 when so many people walked away from their mortgages here in Santan Valley and elsewhere in Pinal County. But a lot of the driver of that was lack of infrastructure. And as Joe and Celeste shared, Pinal County then invested a lot of money in bonding future revenues to do improvements on things like Ironwood Gansel, for example, or Hunt Highway, that allowed the growth that is now occurring in Santan Valley as we see levels of service go down because of that same type of growth. It's materializing again over time. It's to minimize externally associated no growth sentiment. And when I say that, I would reflect on City of Tucson, for example, City of Flagstaff, where they have made decisions to not improve regional transportation infrastructure, to use that as a way to slow down growth or control growth. That's not what this is for. This is for collecting funds for a government entity to deal with the externalities for the public's good, for the public's benefit. Impact fees versus negotiated agreements. One of the questions that frequently comes up in the government world is, why don't you do a development agreement? Everybody's probably heard of a development agreement. Development agreements were a hot topic in the early 2000s and for a lot of entities around the state and in Pinal County, including the county. Joe was here at the time in the county. A lot of large developments, they all had an individualized development agreement. Well, the problem with a development agreement is things change over time. The size of lots change over time. The standards by which construction is done, either roadways or houses or utility systems, change over time. The beautiful thing about an impact fee is it's for 10 years of improvements. It has to be spent within 10 years if you collect it, and the study has to be updated every 5 years. So the cost per lane mile, for example, on a transportation project is updated at least every 5 years to stay relevant to the product, to the demand, to the cost to do the improvements. Integrate comprehensive planning, economic development, and revenue strategies. Like I said before, there's an actual socioeconomic study that occurs to generate need and level of service. Then there's what's called an IIP, which is essentially an improvement program that's associated with each of the different types of funds that you're going to collect for a development impact fee, and it's tied to real information and real needs. There are essentially 3 different ways that are allowed in Arizona state law to what we call methodologies for how you do your planning associated with development impact fees. The first one is the way that a lot of folks did it years ago, which was take a look at the existing plans, take a look at the areas where the existing growth occurs, identify the improvements that are needed, and then set up a model to recover those costs. So as an example, I would provide City of Maricopa when I was there. When we did our second development impact fee study specifically for transportation, the only thing we included in the study was the outside lanes on arterial routes. So they were planned as 6-lane facilities with a turn lane in the middle. We only collected on the outside lane of that 6-lane section. So anything on the interior of that was going to be the responsibility of the developer or the town before you got into that regional improvement. That would be an example of a cost recovery approach, a known improvement over a time frame to recover that cost. The incremental approach. This is likely what we'll do if you allow us to move forward with the DIF study. Essentially, when you use an incremental approach, you take a look at individual road segments of regional routes, so arterial routes, within your area. And the gentleman sitting over here to my left, I don't recall his name, but he does HPMS for a living, which is the way that federal government tracks functional classification, roadway needs, traffic, and level of service. So he's an expert. I keep checking to see if he's nodding. His name's Adrian? Adrian. So we know a lot of the same people do a lot of the same things. An incremental approach will have a list of projects based on functional classification, HPMS classification, and volume of traffic as determined by growth patterns over time. That is likely what we'll do. The other option is a plan-based approach, and sometime we might arrive there. That's when you've built out a lot of your infrastructure. Let's look at Tempe as an example. You've built out a lot of your infrastructure. Your roads are as wide as they're going to be, but you know that you may need to do a regional improvement like the Broadway curve, and you want to collect a fee so you can contribute to that regional improvements. It's specific to that project, the financing of that project over that 10-year time period. Limitations of the plan-based approach, and Pinal County's old DIF study, as a matter of fact, was a plan-based approach. Then you're tied to those specific projects, that specific time frame, and the cost to do that individual project. That would be a bad idea from Santan's perspective. We want a list of projects, so therefore we can do any of those projects. We want a cost per lane mile. We want a level of service example. And in that way, the council will approve, okay, we need to do 4.5 lane miles in the next 10 years. Not a specific project, 4.5 lane miles. We'll collect for the 4.5 lane miles. We can use that money on any of those increments that exist in that program, if that makes sense to you. In terms of the ARS statutes themselves, and I mentioned this before, when you do a DIF study, there's essentially 3 separate documents. It won't look that way when it's produced. There's the land use assumptions, which is what I call the socioeconomic analysis. There's the infrastructure improvements plan, or IIP. That's a 10-year plan of improvements. And then there's the actual fee study itself, where you link level of service to needs to make sure that you can at least manage the existing level of service over time with the fees that you collect. There are a number of different things that you can collect development impact fees for. In our state, my recommendation at this point is we should be looking at transportation or streets and parks. We don't have the basis to collect impact fees for anything else. We don't have the water system. We don't have the wastewater system. We don't have a fire department. We don't have a police department. So we can't do public safety. So I think parks and streets is where we will end up. It's a little wonky. It's different than our typical process for ordinances in terms of what you have to do. There's a very specific process that occurs with development impact fee adoption, and there's 2 different processes that occur. They overlap, but the wild thing about them is once you start down this road, you cannot stop, because you have to meet these deadlines. And not only do you have to act within a certain amount of time, if you don't act, you have to start over. So I just threw that up there as an example of what this would look like. But essentially what I'm asking the council for tonight is the ability to move forward immediately with Tischler Weiss, who does They probably do 95% of the impact fee studies in Arizona. They're a national company. They're out of Virginia. The important thing here is Joe and I have been working with Tischler Weiss for a year to do the development impact fee study for Pinal County. And something that not everybody knows, Pinal County was nice enough to actually include Santan Valley in the analysis for all the road segments and all the socioeconomic analysis. Even though it was likely that we were going to incorporate, they went ahead and did that work to lower the cost for us. So big thanks go out to Pinal County and Joe and his team for doing that. And with that, are there any questions?
Questions from the council?
Did we state the cost, the official cost?
$55,000, I think is what it is.
And Mayor, Council, that actually falls within Brent's spending authority. So that is something that he can do on his own. And I think what we're looking for as well is just general guidance, confirmation that council would like to move down this path of development impact fees more generally. If that's something council.
When did the county do that study, that most that included Santan Valley?
That's the beautiful thing. Theirs isn't done yet and they haven't got into the public process. So the thought would be, if we move quickly and expeditiously, our public process and their public process would be generally at the same time. Adoption would be generally at the same time. And it allows us hopefully to be able to have those fees instituted about the time that we officially become a city, so we don't lose out on revenue. And also gives us the ability to have a close comparison with the county in terms of their fee structure.
And just for clarity, the impact fees would be something that we would have to implement in order to collect moving forward. No retro, nothing like that.
Can't go backwards.
That's what everyone does understand that.
And the other thing that I would point out is, and I don't want to overstep Joe, but Joe stayed. Pinal County has financed some streets that are now in our area, mainly I think Hunt Highway, and you saw how that funding, they're going to be paying that back till I think 2037, right? It wouldn't surprise me in the least if Pinal County doesn't come to us and says, can you help service this debt till 2037 on the projects, on this project that's in your boundary? I would expect that would likely occur.
Okay. And then just a reminder to the council that I believe it was last meeting that we approved the dollar amount for the town manager to be able to use. And that is, like council said, is well within that range. So do we have a consensus with the council to allow the town manager to go forward with this Tischler Weiss study? Councilmember Tyler, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I think it's absolutely imperative that we move quickly on this. I mean, that's things that this community needs. So yes, I'm in agreement.
Okay, so it sounds like we are in agreement, Brent, to let's move forward with this. I think this is something that we need to implement and get going on. So thank you. Okay. That gets us, I don't know if you're leaving too far, Brent. Looks like you and the council are up on the next legislative update for item number E. This is the discussion regarding HB 2273 and HB 2106, which is concerning the allocation of previously collected Pinal County Transportation Excise Tax revenues to specify roadways and transportation projects. And these are two big ones that we just recently found out some information on. So we'll let Brent have the floor again.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, members of council. That was a perfect lead in. It was a big surprise, honestly, earlier this week when I was let know that a bill had dropped, sponsored by Representative Martinez out of Casa Grande, called House Bill 2273. And for anybody in the audience, as soon as I found out about the bill, I sent it out to the council and then got with Alan to see if we could put it on the agenda, not as part of the legislative report, but to put it on as an agenda item so that to give council the ability to kind of give us some direction on these two bills. They both have to do with the $45 million estimated that exists from the half-cent sales tax that was approved by the Pinal County voters in 2017 and subsequently was subject to a lawsuit from the Goldwater Institute where the county lost. All that money was collected and there had to be a determination on what happens with those funds. The state put forth a process by which individual vendors could claim a reimbursement of that tax that had been collected. And that has been ongoing for a couple of years. It ends in April, but I think there's about $45 million that exists. What you see in House Bill 2273 is a list of 12 different projects throughout, or entities and projects throughout Pinal County that make up that remaining amount. The one thing that isn't there is a project in Santan Valley, an entity that makes up about a fifth of the population of Pinal County, has a third of the total lane miles of roads in Pinal County, and obviously a lot of the traffic and congestion that exists in Pinal County. So I wanted to get this out to everybody. This is one of the bills that was dropped. Another one is called House Bill 2106. It also is dealing with the remainder of those funds from that half-cent sales tax, but this bill takes a different approach. It recommends that those remaining funds be provided to ADOT, the Arizona Department of Transportation, to distribute for projects that fall within Pinal County. I'm told there's a third bill that's been dropped and maybe a fourth. I just don't have copies of them as of today. I was told the third bill is to take those monies and provide them to Pinal County for distribution on projects around the county. New issue, was a surprise to hear it, but I wanted to be able to brief the council, and then what I'm hoping to get is some feedback on whether the way that most entities do it is, do you support the bill? Do you not support the bill or oppose it, or are you agnostic on the bill? So if we could get that on these, that would be good. So from a staff perspective, we can take a position.
I got a question on the HB 2106. Putting that into the hands of ADOT, what's the guarantee that those ADOT will make the decision that Santan Valley needs those funds in certain projects? That I think is still out there as it could be a no. What is your feeling and read on that?
Alan and I sat in a meeting yesterday where that was brought up with all the cities and towns in Pinal County that was on that legislative call. And what I heard was all of the cities and towns, we didn't take a position, but all of the cities and towns told the county, because Tammy Ryle, who's their government affairs person for the county, was the one presenting it. They all told Tammy, no, we do not want the funds going to ADOT because they will include overhead costs and we won't have a determination in terms of priorities, and it could go to be funding design or environmental clearance instead of actual construction. So what we heard in that meeting was we would prefer it not go to ADOT.
And you're saying that there could be one or two other House bills out there that could then help decide how the funds get distributed. We don't know them yet.
We don't know them
so we're not sure yet. So in the town's position on both these bills, yeah, this is something that we need to give direction to staff on. I know personally, I was a little baffled by the first HB 2273 where Santan Valley got zero and the citizens helped pay into that and we got nothing back. And I would say for one that should be an opposition to that bill in my estimation or my belief. But it's up for the council if you have any thoughts on that too.
And Mayor, council members, for this particular item, the council can take a formal vote, and that would then create a formal town position that we could convey to stakeholders and legislators.
Would we take a vote for both or one for both?
Totally up to the council. How
They are
you'd like to
two
proceed.
kind of different items.
I just thought of something. I shared what I heard on the meeting yesterday. But I think you asked me for my personal opinion. So in terms of ADOT projects in Pinal County, if that decision was to send the funds to ADOT to distribute, I would just point out what those projects are. One is State Route 347 widening. That's one of the ADOT projects in this county. Another one is I-10 widening between Casa Grande and Ridge Road. That's the second project. Third project is State Route 24 extension. And the fourth project is North-South Corridor, which is currently in the Tier 2 EIS phase. So from a statistics basis, and you know, if I was a betting man, which I'm not, 2 of the 4 projects in theory would directly positively impact Santan Valley.
And we can't throw the Pinal Parkway in there because that's a county level
road.
Improvements.
So this is with 2106. Are you saying we could potentially support it with these draws, with these carve outs or caveats, or?
It's so early. There's so much to happen. These haven't gone to committee yet. I'm sure they're going to be rewritten. There's going to be changes. Maybe they don't even make it to committee. We're just hoping for a little bit of direction from you guys, because I'm sure we're going to be asked by the league how we feel about them. And I'll keep you guys up to speed if I find those other bills, but it's always just good to inform the council and the public when something important like this comes up and get some feedback, if that makes sense.
I'm with the mayor in opposition to HB 2106. I'm curious, where do our representatives stand on that one?
Well, both of these bills were introduced by Ms. Martinez, and 2273, which is the one that the mayor was talking about, was also Blackman, Carter, Lopez, Marshall, and Way. So our 2 were signed on to the bill.
Love to hear from them why they wouldn't sign onto a bill that does not include Santan Valley, who's paid into all of this.
Yeah, and hopefully that wasn't a process where they just put their name on it without reading the bill. I know sometimes that does happen in the legislative level, but
Even then, it's important oversight. I would echo again, my colleagues here, as written, strong opposition. For one, it's an oversight, an important oversight. And again, with ADA, like I said, there are no guarantees. So we want to make certain we give as much assurance as possible to our residents that, again, we are on the map and that they are included in whatever legislation comes out of there. So.
yeah, I say I agree with everyone that on the 2273, it's an opposition for me. The 2106 though, that's a different. I think there's more there to still come out. We don't know what these other bills are going to include. I'm not opposed to ATOT with those projects that do directly benefit Santan Valley in the perimeter, 24, 505, and Maricopa down there. Boy, they are hurting. Then they could use that 347 right over in that area. So that one is a little, I'm not sure yet on that one, but definitely the first one. It depends on what the next bill is. So it's hard to give you something on it right at this moment, but it could be agnostic for me, but yeah.
The one thing that did come up yesterday is, in general, the group's feeling was if they have until April to do the reimbursements and the claims for reimbursements, why don't we wait till next legislative session to determine how to distribute it once we know what the balance of funds is? Because right now it's just kind of like playing with monopoly money.
Just a point of clarification, I said it earlier, HB 2106, I meant 2273.
On that first bill, how were those 12 projects selected as far as the divvied up, like?
The mayor and I have been on a covert mission to try and find that out.
Especially with our people, it's like they backed this, but without anything. I mean, was this done pre-incorporation maybe? And
So-
they didn't.
So I will tell you, my first thought when I saw this the other day, and I think I mentioned that in the email that I sent to the council. My first thought was, well, they must have used the study that went in the text of the bill to list the projects. But then I opened it. I think I sent you guys a copy of it. Then I looked at the projects, and the projects in the study for the tax are different than what's in here. So I don't know how they were developed or who developed them.
Okay.
We don't know. What we do know is that Santan Valley is not in it. So that I don't think means that the citizens of Santan Valley have paid a tax into it. And if they're going to give that back, I say we oppose 2273. I think we should probably take two separate votes on each one. Because I don't know how the other council member, Councilmember Tyler online, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, 2273, I think is absolutely horrible that we weren't mentioned as part of that. So I think that's very short-sighted of that representative to not include anything in this area. As far as 2106, I'm a little bit back and forth on that one. It all depends on how much money ADOT wants to allocate towards this area. I mean, he said $45 million. If they're spending $40 million of that's on the 347 and 5 out here, then yeah, no, I'm not, I would be in opposition to that, but I would love to see how they want to allocate that money before I would say, I mean, if they want to spend most of that money on developing the 24, which would help, you know, a few 100,000 people out here in this area, I would be all for that. So yeah, I'm kind of agnostic as in agreement with the mayor on 2106 until I see more of the language on that, but in opposition to 2273.
And again, just to underscore what you mentioned, Brian, just about the potential for skimming. So again, just reminding everyone, there is that as well. We want to be certain that when we make a decision on 2006, that we take that into account. Okay, so and what I mean by skimming is, you know, overhead, administrative, whatever they can justify when they're allotted that pocket of monies. Every dollar counts. So.
Oh, yeah.
One more question. Sorry. And on the House Bill 2106, what does it mean? Maybe Alan can let me know what emergency clause means in the actual. Why are they referring to emergency clause? Is that another statute?
It just moves up the effective date of the law.
So April 10th, that moves it up from what?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. So that those are often included to make the
Make
law.
it effective immediately instead of 30 days after being signed by the governor.
Okay. So, Alan, I'm gonna suggest that we make a motion on each one separately, but the motion would probably need from somebody to say, I move the council to recommend approval, or to recommend opposition, or to recommend agnostic. Would that be a favorable way of doing it?
Yes, Mayor. I think in some of the packets there, some sample language might be, I move to direct staff to advocate for amendments to HB 2273 to include transportation projects within town of Santan Valley and to oppose the bill unless such amendments are adopted. Or there could be more just outright opposition. I move that the town of Santan Valley oppose HB 2273 and direct staff to communicate the town's opposition to the legislature, bill sponsors, and relevant stakeholders. So those are some different options, either just outright oppose or, push for amendments and the add projects for Santan Valley and oppose if those aren't added. Of course, whatever motion's made is ultimately the purview of the council.
Okay. Any questions on the motions before we decide if we're going to make that motion?
I just want to be clear in terms of this vote now. So assuming they made amendments or changes, is that are more suitable to us, then is that something the council would then be okay with and register support for such bills if they do accommodate Santan Valley? Is that what everyone is kind of feeling here?
I would feel that'd be an appropriate way of looking at it.
I would also want to understand the distribution of these funds, how they came to this place to determine these particular numbers before I would feel comfortable supporting this to make sure it's appropriate.
And then the reason I say that is because, again, if the overwhelming sentiment is for this bill, we could literally be blocked out of the vote if we don't register kind of what things will make us happy. So, we want to make certain we've put on the table how we can be appeased, so that way we can become yeses. Because the other alternative is we say no, and they move on ahead without us. So.
Mayor and council, I, as far as my recommendation goes, take it for what it's worth. I think giving staff some leeway to negotiate, to try to see if there can be adjustments to the bill is a good thing. That way we're not, things can move fast in the legislature, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we have meetings twice a month, but if we know, yes, there's opposition to this bill in its current form, we have a strong position from the town on that, but we're then given some latitude to negotiate, try to get some projects for Santan Valley added to the list, so to speak, then that would be my recommendation. I don't know what Brent's thoughts on that are.
That's a better way to
I
go.
totally agree. I don't think you want to be hard and fast because there will be amendments, there will be changes. But not only that, if this bill doesn't make committee, there might be a striker at some point where another bill that has made it through committee is then the language is struck and this language is inserted. So it's just more of general sentiment. We oppose the language as current, direct staff to work on further negotiation and bring that back to the board, something like that.
And will these, our opinions here be forwarded on to the legislator or legislation or the powers that be to know that here's what we believe?
That's something else that we would love to know is typically one or more of you would enroll as lobbyist to do that from the elected official side. And then we'll do the same from the staff side and be there to support you if you want to testify in committee, et cetera, when the bill comes up. But also so that we can share that with the league, share that with the Pinal County Intergov group, et cetera, share it with the county's Intergov so they can take that to the County Supervisors Association, et cetera. Just want to know what you would like us to do.
Well, again, I know I've had conversations with Brent about this and mainly because of convenience, because I commute to downtown and I was able to visit the legislative luncheon. So I know everyone is kind of all over the place. But again, I'm more than happy to jump in because literally the Capitol was 5 minutes from my office. But it's one of those things that I think absolutely I'd be more than happy to deliver the town council's sentiment on some of these issues and to really hammer the point home that we do need to be included in this. But again,
I too would be willing if I needed to. Okay, council, with that, with the information that we have received, what is the pleasure of the council?
Mayor, I'd like to recommend in its current form opposition to HB 2273, but give direction to staff to begin negotiating on this bill, to get feedback on how these funds were distributed the way they were, and then to see how to get Santan Valley included in this bill.
So to clarify that motion, was that to support the bill? That is what I
in its current form, opposition, but giving you guys the ability to negotiate.
Okay, so the motion is to oppose with
it would be to oppose HB 227, but direct staff to communicate the town's position with the legislator or legislation.
Vice Mayor, is that an accurate? Okay, that's the motion on the floor then.
Okay, so we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. That will carry. Now, we'll have the same type of vote on the next bill, which is the HB 2106.
Mayor, I move to direct staff to advocate for amendments to HB 2106 to include transportation projects within the town of Santan Valley and to oppose the bill unless such amendments are adopted.
Is that good for you, Alan? Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. So those two will carry those motions. And we'll have the staff go forward with trying to figure some things out.
So just a quick question moving forward, because again, you mentioned the legislature is moving at lightning speed. If we have any other bills that come up, will we need to be called into session to do so, to take positions on some of these other measures?
Potentially. I will try to keep you guys as informed as I possibly can. And if there's a need to testify, we'll get information out to you.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll do a legislative report at future council meeting.
Okay. Okay, moving on. We'll go to item number F. This is the county planning and zoning case review. This is discussion regarding the town's option for participating in Pinal County planning and zoning cases during the ARS 9-104 transition period, including advisory input on cases, timing, and process for town recommendations and possible use of advisory body. So Alan will be presenting this before us. So you have the floor.
All right, Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm going to move quickly through this presentation, but I'm going to give you the heads up now, 4 key decision points that staff would like to receive input from the council tonight on this topic. As the council is well aware, Pinal County, under the current legal framework, continues to provide key services to the town, including Joe and Celeste talked about roadway infrastructure. Those services are being provided. But in addition to that, we have planning and zoning services are being provided by the county. And that is until July 1st of this year. During this period, unless the town adopts a competing zoning ordinance or code, the county zoning ordinance, the comprehensive plan for the county remain in effect during this time period. So being a part of the incorporation effort, hearing from some constituents, participating in some town halls, we're well aware that the town incorporated for many reasons, but in part, there was a lot of public sentiment about increasing local control over development and managing land use impacts, zoning, a general plan going into the future. So we're looking, the town's goal, we think at this point, is to influence the county zoning cases that are in process to have the greatest impact on those decisions, that process as possible, without prematurely assuming the full zoning authority until we're ready come July 1st. So that's kind of the goal, what we're looking at. We've been working on developing a process to propose to council, and it's kind of a big overview of that process, but it really starts with coordination and a lot of communication with the county, right? We need to know when a new zoning case comes in. Like when that thing is filed, it's got a number. We need to know early on in the process in order for us to have a say and to influence that case. So Brent has reached out to the county and is doing a great job coordinating, trying to set up meetings where we're getting these updates, these reports on cases that are in the pipeline. So that's going to be a critical part to make any of this, what follows work, we're going to have that notice. What we're also proposing, so in addition maybe to having a standing agenda item on legislative updates, as Councilmember Wolford has requested, we might have a standing agenda item on cases, Pinal County zoning cases that are working their way through the pipeline. So we could have, and actually just maybe even bullet point those cases out so that we can have discussion on those cases, not to make a decision, not to do a full analysis of the case, but rather to do a council triage is what we're going to call it. Basically saying, hey, we've identified this case as a case that potentially impacts the town. I would say 99 or maybe 90% of those cases are going to be within the jurisdiction of the town. Those are going to be the ones of primary concern. That being said, there may be projects that are adjacent to the town that are significant, or large scale projects in the vicinity of the town that may have impacts. So those would be ones that Brent and I look at and say, let's put that on an agenda during that agenda tracking item. And then let's bring it to council, bring it to you guys, and then you can say, yes, we want this one to be thoroughly vetted and explored and go through the process that follows. And that process would include special meetings of the town. And we'll talk about later how to structure those special meetings, either of the council and or a special advisory body created by the council to review those cases in detail and provide official recommendations of, perhaps approval, perhaps denial, perhaps approval with conditions, right? And then finally, there would be a formal recommendation, and the town could issue a written recommendation to the county. Now, that's kind of the broad brush overview of this process. Now, within this process, we've identified 4 key decision points, and that's what we're going to get into in a minute. But before we do that, I just have one slide to help you understand just the big picture of how a county land use entitlement case is processed. If you're unfamiliar with the process, there's just this key concept, and that's that rezoning cases, county cases, they first go to the county's Planning and Zoning Commission. That is an advisory body. They will have the applicant, the developer will come to that meeting. They will present on the case. County staff will be there. They will make recommendations of their own to the P&Z, the county P&Z. There'll be a public hearing. There's going to be a transcript. The county actually makes transcripts of these proceedings. I believe there are video recordings online of county P&Z meetings. And so there's this record generated at the county P&Z. They then forward their recommendation to the county's Board of Supervisors. And that case then works its way, usually a month or
4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. It's going to make its way to the county's Board of Supervisors, those 5 supervisors that represent the entire county. And then they're going to make the final decision. They are not bound by the P&Z's recommendation, but it is something that they can consider. So that's kind of the overview of the process, so that you understand how the town can influence and be a part of that process. So council guidance, and kind of this is the first of these 4 kind of key decision points that we're looking for guidance on. And the first one is going to be the timing of the town's recommendations to the county. There's really, the question really comes down to, should the town submit its recommendations before or after the county Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, its formal recommendation? And so there's some considerations here. Brent and I were talking about this further, and we think that even if the town decides to do it after, that town staff might be able to reach out, give the P&Z Commission just a heads up that this case will be going through the town review process, maybe highlight some general issues. Brent, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I thought it'd be good for the folks in attendance tonight to kind of help them understand the time frame. So under the open meeting law in Arizona, the agenda and the packet must be out 24 hours in advance of the meeting. Now, Pinal County tries to do their best to get things out. They have their planning and zoning meetings on Thursday morning, and they try to get everything posted and the packets out the Friday prior to the meeting. So, essentially 6 days prior to the meeting. The challenge, as you can imagine, from the town's perspective, is there's no way we could schedule an advisory committee meeting, have the developer and their experts come in and talk to the advisory committee, answer questions, make a recommendation, take it back to council, and have council make a decision prior to the P and Z meeting. That it's physically impossible from a timing perspective to make all that work. What we had discussed before is kind of what you saw me do last week, which is maybe myself or a staff member provide some general analysis of the case itself after sharing it with the board members, but not upsetting the open meeting law with respect to that, to just provide some general comments prior to P and Z. But then that gives us 4 to 6 weeks to have an advisory committee meeting, develop a recommendation, get that to the board, perhaps as a consent agenda item. That makes sense.
Right, yeah, so, yeah, and what Brent would be doing there would not be a formal position of the town. It would be staff's kind of initial take.
I think I called it observations.
Staff's observations on the case, a notification that formal review will be forthcoming. Yeah, it wouldn't be an official town position. I think there are benefits to waiting until after the P and Z commission. There's some pros and cons, really. Going before, the argument could be made that you have more influence on shaping the case because the stipulations and things are still, the case is a little more malleable perhaps at that point. The drawback is the case isn't fully formed and we don't know what it's really going to look like until it comes out of P and Z. At that point, you're going to have clear conditions. You're going to really know what that case is looking like. You're going to have some public input. There's going to be a record that the town can now really understand what that case is going to look like. So I think Brent and I's recommendation would be to target town review very shortly after that P and Z hearing. Yes.
What's typically the time frame? How much time transpires between the hearing and when it goes before the board for approval?
4 to 6 weeks.
That makes sense.
And I would say that doing it after the P and Z, because the benefit there is you've got the planning and zoning vetting those developers that are coming in, asking the questions, finding out what their reasoning is behind their project and why they're doing it, what is the benefit to the community, where before you don't have that.
Right.
And so that becomes kind of a hindrance to us, like, well, we haven't heard from, because the applicant may not want to come to here. And you know, how can we force them to come here when the governing body is Pinal County? They're the ones that are hearing the cases until such time the town has our own planning and zoning. So I think after is better.
Yeah, Mayor, Councilman's great point. You're absolutely right. I legally wouldn't be able to require an applicant to be here. Now I would say behoove them to appear. They may want to do that, find that to be in their best interest. Because obviously I think the town's going to be taking a position that our recommendation carry a lot of weight and that the county is essentially acting as a steward for the town during this period. So if there's a recommendation coming from the town, an official recommendation, that should be given great weight. If not be determined on cases. So
I agree, because when the Board of Supervisors are voting on this, they're voting on what is affecting our town.
Right.
And we have to now carry that forward because it's been done, sealed and delivered. And so, yeah, we should be able to have our input.
Right. We should have, yeah, so we're kind of in this twilight stage of transition, but based on the feedback I've received so far, I think we'll target maybe just after the P and Z. So unless any council members have any additional input or thoughts, we'll move on.
I think gives us more credibility and we're not just a bunch of NIMBYs, not in my backyards, who live out here. So I think after.
I just wanted to say, If it's okay with you guys, we'll give that staff observations prior to P and Z, just so that when it goes to the board, a board member doesn't say, well, if you were that interested in the case, why didn't you comment at planning and zoning? So at least we've got something on the record prior to P and Z, if that makes sense.
I think, yeah, you speak for yourself, but for me, I think having staff prior to the P and Z, having the ear down and working with Pinal County to know what cases are, I think that's appropriate.
Yeah, I agree with After. I think between, staff comments, between the mayor sitting on the planning and zoning commission of the county, Karen as well, to be able to voice what their insights into this council and this town, I think is enough. And then afterwards, make our more informed decision.
Great. Yeah.
We're going to be doing both then.
Oh, excuse me.
So we're going to be doing both then, at registering preliminary sentiment and then adopting a formal town position.
Right. The preliminary will be more technical staff overview. I don't think Brent's going to be saying, we oppose or we support. He can't do that.
Observations.
Yeah.
Observations.
There will be observations. They will be formulated by Brent and Brent,
Maybe somebody else. Don't put it all on Brent.
yeah, I mean, Brent and I will work together on that. And we're working on getting a community development director here too. So there's, there'll be some discussion there. And I think taking it to either this body or another body, we're gonna be able to attach to that body's agenda the full P and Z. The expectation prior to be that you watch the P and Z's proceeding going into that meeting. So that's gonna be a great source of information. All right, decision point 1. Decision point 2. Who should conduct these reviews, particularly the initial review? So staff, Brent and I. So we've identified two options, right? Town council can conduct all reviews directly in special meetings. Well, that's you. Or town council can create a special advisory body that performs these reviews and makes recommendations. And we've listed out some pros, some cons, some considerations on this one. It's not an easy decision. One thing to consider is council workload, your guys' workload. The kind of meetings, we think this would require special meetings. So off our normal schedule, if council wanted to do this, we need to have special meetings. There'd be a lot of agenda material to go through to prepare for these things. So that's one thing to consider. Another thing is public participation and the development of local planning expertise. Eventually, after July 1st, the town is going to have its own planning and zoning commission, right? That is going to review cases, then make recommendations to you as the council. So it's kind of creating that framework. Now, we wouldn't recommend calling it a planning and zoning commission for legal reasons. It's not, we don't want to imply that it's subject to all the same posting and other requirements. So there might be a separate, different name for it. It wouldn't be that statutory body. And it would probably sunset if we go that direction on July 1st. But wow, you could have some candidates there for a P&Z body in the future, that's for sure. So there's also consideration of administrative effort to establish and train an advisory body if we go that route. The process would be, I'd probably create a resolution that establishes this body's operating rules, their name, then we'll have another slide on some of those kind of things we can put into that resolution. And then we would train that body on open meeting law. We would need to have minutes taken. We need to post the minutes of this body. So those are things to think about. Brent's got a great training all queued up for open meeting law. We could give it'd probably take a day or half a day of staff's time to train up such a body. Another consideration is finally the persuasiveness of recommendations with county decision makers. So this gets to, and there'll be another decision point on this, but if this body were to issue its recommendations directly to the county board of supervisors, we think maybe that wouldn't be as powerful if it Instead, maybe the body issued its recommendation. It went to the mayor who signed it off on it, or decided this needs to go to the full council, or the body makes the recommendation and then it just comes to the council and is maybe on a consent agenda item, or kind of where you guys would just ratify it. You could pull it off and do your own kind of analysis of the case, but we envision typically it would just, you'd follow the recommendation unless someone wanted to. But so those are some of the considerations. But all that being said, on this decision point 2, what's the input? What's the thought? What are the thoughts from council on creating an advisory body or handling these yourself?
Well, I think if tonight's any evidence, our agendas are full and we are covering a lot of ground really, really fast. I think it would be very advantageous for us to create a special advisory body who would look very closely at this and advise us on these issues, because we're carrying a lot as we approach this July 1 deadline. So that's where I would stand.
I would agree with an advisory team. We have probably, a ton of talented people, that constituents within our community that is willing and able to help, build the culture of Santan Valley. So I'm all for a advisory committee. And as long as we're doing a resolution to have the guidelines and what our particular framework is, as far as, I know we don't have a vision yet, but just keeping and being mindful of a lot of the items that would be something that we feel strongly about, so.
I do also want to be mindful of our staff's workloads and constraints, but again, I am receptive to the idea. However, it would be something we need to move quickly on. Again, just given the timing. So it would just be something that would be kind of added as an urgent item, because we do need to stand up an advisory body, get them trained up. Considering everything else on your docket, if that's feasible, then I'd be okay with it.
Councilmember Wolfert, we appreciate the realism there, and this is something that we are prepared to expedite. We do think it will take probably a month to get the body up and running, because we need to, next council meeting, we could have a resolution with the creating this body, but then there would be an appointment process where the council would, we can talk about that on the next slide, where we appoint members of the body, and then we would have to, get them trained up and then have the meetings going. So I would say probably a month would be really ambitious and lightning fast.
Well, then to ease up some of the pressures, is there a way we could maybe do like a hybrid? Maybe for the time being, we do some expedited while you have the time to form this body, because we're going to need it afterwards, after July 1st. So we might get a head start.
So what our intent would be is, until we have the body up and going, staff will continue to give the observations to the county planning and zoning, and then any hot items that are identified, we would take directly to the council up until get it running. But I think
there.
Yeah, that's the intent.
Yeah, we may, in the interim, we may be requesting for special meetings on some of these cases that are pretty far along in the process.
I just don't think we hold and wait while these other items are going before P&Z and then get the committee stuff. We can just do a rolling thing. And I love being able to get more of the, town involved in this. This is such a cool experience. And if we can get some more leaders involved in informing us, I think the more the better.
It's the best way in the world to train your future public servants and your council members. The best story ever is when I was at Maricopa, there was a gentleman, a young man, that got elected to be the head of his HOA. It's called Maricopa Meadows, and they had a big flood control problem. And so this gentleman came in to meet with me. His name was Christian Price. If anybody knows who Christian Price is, he's a very well-known guy in Pinal County. Christian came in and met with me, and he was very impressive. And I said, we're recruiting for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Would you be interested? He says, what's a Planning and Zoning Commission? He put in his application. He got on the P&Z. Within a year, he was elected the head of the P&Z, Within 2 years, he ran for mayor, and I think he spent 12 years as mayor. So, and that is how Christian got his start, was at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and that's where he built his passion for government.
Yeah, and I would say that timing is everything, because you would have staff previewing these cases. They go to planning and zoning, and then until such time a committee was formed, then you have the committee to look at it before it goes to the BOS, then it has to come to the council. So there's like time frame and constraints that we have to be aware of. It can work. It's just how much time, does our plethora of staff members want to put into it at this point.
It really doesn't have to be either or. You can do both. So.
Yeah,
But-
I think that's the guidance that we're taking away is a hybrid. Initially,
Yeah.
council we may have to have some special meetings.
Which I'm fine with. It's up to the rest of the council. I have no problem with that. Yeah, and then that goes down to, down the road, are we gonna want to put these things on as a consent item? On our meeting, and then, as needed, because we will have the information prior, we can look at the information, and then if one of us wants to pull an item for further discussion, we can do that. I think that seems like an appropriate way of doing it.
Mayor, we can jump ahead. Let's skip over 3.
Okay.
We'll pivot back to it in a second, but you got right into decision point 4.
Oh, sorry.
And that is handling the advisory body recommendations. It seems like there is some guidance for staff on the body. So there's some options after this body makes a recommendation. Do we, 1, forward that recommendation just straight on to the county? 2, forward it to the mayor, possibly the vice mayor, who can endorse and then forward to the county, or decide, hey, let's place this on a council agenda for full council review. Or option 3, you just place it on the council consent agenda for council approval. And some considerations here is double hearings. The advisory body plus council will require a lot of time, and we are in the startup stage where time is precious. We've got a lot of competing issues and concerns we're working through. And then there's the consideration of recommendations may carry more weight if they have, mayor sign off, or even more if it's the full council, endorsing and ratifying what this advisory body has recommended. So what are any guidance for staff on options 1 through 3? Like the outcome.
On this one?
1 or 2 for
Member Tyler.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards more of the 2 forward to mayor and vice mayor. I fear that if we wait to put it on council agenda, we may be too late to respond to some of these. But I like to have a little bit of weight behind the the recommendation.
All right. Mayor, vice mayor, you figured prominently in this. What are your thoughts?
So while I want to have this advisory committee set up and to work on this and to really take a deep dive, I don't want to punt the council's authority in this. I want to make sure we have the say and the oversight over this. This is our responsibility, our role, our job. And so option number 1 of decision 4, forward director of county, I don't think that's an option. 2, I could be persuaded, but I would actually lean to 3, place on the consent agenda for the council. I want any council member to be able to pull this if needed. We all represent Santan Valley and all have a responsibility on this. And so I think that, and then secondly, I think all of us saying, yes, we're behind this sends an even stronger message to the county on our decision and position. Right?
Yes, Brent.
I've got a question for Alan. Sorry, Alan, to put you on the spot. With regard to option number 2, doesn't that put the mayor in a very difficult position? The fact that he's on the Planning and Zoning Commission and he's also the mayor, I would think that would be a conflict for him to actually endorse the board's recommendations to go to the Board of Supervisors. So I think that really hurts number 2.
Yeah, and there, it could be the vice mayor that's designated in that position. As far as sussing out the potential conflicts, I'd want to review that and maybe consult directly with the mayor. But yeah, that, if nothing else, putting a potential conflict aside, I think it creates, there is a certain level of pressure there of, the decision is kind of focused in one individual as opposed to distributed amongst the whole council. I agree with that.
Although I do appreciate the confidence in Councilmember Tyler, I do agree that I would prefer it coming to the council as a consent item, because we will have the information for us, all of us, be able to review it after our committee too would have their recommendation too. So that's where I would stand.
I think given our phased approach, we can be a little bit more, probative. And so 3, there may not be that front-loaded extra work if we are being thoughtful in rolling out this body. So the council, in the meantime, obviously, they want to know that this is a democratic decision, I guess, rather than just, something that's partial. So I'm leaning more towards 3.
Any other comments, discussion on this section that we went over? We still have another one.
I guess I'm trying to think how this would work. So we have an advisory committee and they look at things and make recommendations because there's more so probably an expert, more so than I would be. And then then it would go to the town manager, and then it would go to us, and then we'd have all the data to be able to make an informed decision when it's on the consent agenda. Is that how that's working?
I've got some thoughts, but we got Brent.
So here's the way I envision it in my mind in a simplified form. Once the case is posted, the packet's provided for the Planning and Zoning Commission. Staff will get their hands on it. We'll take a look at that. And we'll essentially have 6 days to provide observations, right, with respect to the cases. I'm looking at these two because they're on the P&Z. As soon as that meeting is concluded, we'll have a packet. We'll have all the supporting materials from the county, as well as the video recording that has audio from the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the decisions that were made, including whether it was recommended for approval or denial and any stipulations that were added. That allows us to very quickly, because we only have 4 to 6 weeks, I would say perhaps the next week, meet the open meeting law requirements to convene the advisory committee. The advisory committee would have a daytime meeting where it will be agendized, and the folks that are applicants will be able to come and present their case to the advisory committee, much like the Planning and Zoning Commission at any city, town, or county. And then they would then make a recommendation to the council, which would be documented by staff in the minutes. And then that would be placed on a council agenda sometime before 4 weeks. So maybe 2 weeks after that, on consent that could be pulled, but ultimately a vote in the affirmative or in denial by the council.
Okay, that makes sense. That answers my questions. Thank you.
And then going back to your one point though, we could invite the applicant to come in. They're not going to be required to come in because it's still under the county purview.
If I may just give my 2 cents, I'm good with number 3, the consent agenda item. So I'm good with that.
Well, all right. So I think we've got clear guidance there. Let's go to the last decision point. And this will help staff as we start to formulate this resolution that's going to be coming back to you real quick here, coming to you. So there's some different naming conventions. My recommendation is to call it the Interim Planning Advisory Committee. The composition, 5, 7 members. My recommendation would be 7 members. So each council member gets to appoint one person on this body. Their terms would end July 1st. Obviously, they would have to follow open meeting law. Their role and function, you have there outlined some of the review county land use cases, conduct public hearings, hear presentations from applicant staff and public as available as those are made, and then formulate written recommendations. Any thoughts on that? On the 7 members, the name, anything, or are you comfortable with what we're recommending?
Thoughts?
I'd support interim planning advisory committee for the name and 7 members appointed by each council member.
Any other comments? Brent?
I think it would be great if the mayor appointed one of the council members to be the committee liaison, to attend those meetings, observe, and to be able to, what you said, Councilwoman Jenkins, I heard earlier, which was, I think it's important that the individual members of the committee understand the feelings of the council, the priorities, those kind of things. It'd be great if we had a council member that was there at those meetings that could provide feedback and input, in my opinion.
Okay.
I'd like to offer my name as.
Any other thought? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Tyler.
I was said I'd like to offer my name as a possible person to do that.
Excellent.
Nice.
Okay, put his name down. All right. Okay. What about the naming? Any other thoughts? Are we in agreement with Vice Mayor Hudgens?
I like the interim.
I like interim.
Okay.
Would it be possible to get your appointees by the next council meeting?
For me, yes.
No, everybody. Is that possible to give us your appointees by the next meeting? Because that helps us accelerate.
I'm hoping yes.
How do we know the public? I mean, I don't personally know, like, any public.
Are we gonna have some type of application process? or-
Yeah, is that by an appointment only by the council member, or could it be, or how do we
So
approach?
if it was if it was a city or a county approach, we would do an recruitment just like having an employee. We'd have a description and the time requirements, and we'd send it out and people would apply. Since this is essentially just a council committee, you don't have to follow that process. So if you have somebody in mind, just shoot them to us.
Okay.
Mayor and council,
Yeah, sure.
at a council meeting back in October, there was a request for people interested in serving on committees of various types. A lot of people reached out, and a lot of those people suggested planning and zoning or something very similar. So I can send those names
That's
along.
a good point, Garrett.
That's
Thanks for
awesome.
bringing that up. Yeah, that is correct. We did have a lot of response from the community.
Yeah, I was suggest, either we bring one ourselves, the next council meeting, or the public can email our clerk, pass that information around, plus historical data information around, and then we'll make a determination from there.
Right. All right. And then we'll work out the logistics, and hopefully we'll be able to make reservations here or some other venue for this kind of type of body to meet.
Okay, Alan, anything else?
That's all I have, Mayor.
Any other questions for Alan real quick before we let him go? Okay, hearing none. We're going to move on to item number G. This is town branding. We'll have a presentation by the town manager, Brent Billingsley. Will be a discussion of options for developing the town's initial logo and branding theme, including professional design services and community-based design competition. So Brent, take it away.
Sorry. Sorry, it took me a couple minutes to get up here. I apologize. This is a perfect opportunity, Mr. Mayor and members of the council, to say, we listen and take good notes during these meetings. And one of the topics that we've heard come up a couple of different times, and obviously in a very, overt manner at the last meeting, is from a member of the public who was suggesting a theme for the town.
is that zest from the community through the council to really look forward to branding ourselves in some way. And I know some of you are familiar with branding and the costs associated with doing that, as well as the time frame associated with professional branding. We've looked, meaning our very large staff of Alan and I, at various options and also leaned on some folks that we know in the industry in terms of things that we could potentially do to build community, to garner input and interest in the town of Santan Valley. And what we're providing this evening in the packet is the idea of doing a logo design competition for the public and having a nice reward associated with that in terms of $2,500 prize is what we're proposing.
For the logo.
For the logo, and to give folks 3 months essentially to put something together, get it into us, and then we will go through a review process. It's a multi-level review process. So say the 4 folks in the first row put in their logo, it's highly likely that you may get comments back on that saying, hey, can you soften the colors, or could you make the mountains more prominent? Something like that in terms of a comment to go back and further enhance that concept. We just wanted to reserve the right to do that. It's important that there's plenty of legal jargon attached to this, as well as an agreement that says we may use it, we may not use it. And if you design the logo, we will own the rights and be able to copyright that logo. And it won't be your personal property if you submit in terms of this competition. That's phase 1. Phase 2 would then be the theme. So after discussing it with the mayor, vice mayor, I think the consensus was you do the logo first and let the logo perhaps influence the theme for the second phase. And I think we said $500 for the theme, Alan, is what we would recommend for that individual competition following the logo competition. And keep in mind, there's multiple options. This is just one that we're showing out and seeing if it's something you're interested in going forward with. If you would rather we go down the other road, which is hiring a professional firm to do an actual branding exercise, those usually take 6 months to a year and can be quite expensive in terms of going through that process. The other option that we have at some point, and I believe, a couple of the council members have brought it up tonight, and including Councilmember Wolford, is there a potential for a hybrid? There is a potential for the hybrid, and that would be perhaps someone provides a logo, but it's not necessarily of quality to be able to use for branding. So after that logo is created, we could hire a separate graphic design firm or branding firm to take that logo and turn that into letterhead and for memos and letters, and to set up our signature blocks for email and stuff like that. So there could be a hybrid at some point. But I just wanted to come up today and throw this out as an idea to get some feedback and see if this is something that the council would like to entertain.
Council, any comments, discussion, questions?
I love the idea of including the public on this. I think we've got enough talented people in our town that I would love to see the citizens involved, and so yeah, doing a logo design and a theme that goes along with that logo. I would love to see that rather than hiring a professional logo designer. So.
And I agree with that. I just think that is just a beautiful way to get our logo and have it continue until needs and, goals change maybe 20, 30 years from now, but I think it's wonderful. I would even go to maybe doing something as a second and third place, because there might be multiple entries that are great.
Yeah, I love this idea. This is our town.
Like, it's not just us, it's all of us. I think this advisory committee we just discussed is another way to bring people in. This is another example of a great way to bring people in. I'm personally looking forward to bringing this up at Post and View. They're, you know, newly A-rated school. Maybe we get an A-rated logo design from them. So I think this is great to include the public in this way.
Any thoughts?
I agree. And we got such creative and artistic young people in this town. And this will be a cool little exercise for them to design the logo for the newest town in America. You know, I do think we need to give us some leeway to kind of spruce it up for, you know, public purposes, or presentation purposes, but absolutely, let's do this and let's get it out of the media. Let's, you know, let them know that, we're all hands on deck here in Santan Valley. So.
We have 2 staff members.
I think we have a lot of talented people
Hands on
that
deck.
live in Santan Valley. But Brent, correct me if I'm wrong, but or Alan, in the write-up, there is just for transparency to the public, that there is the right of refusal on any of the projects that are submitted.
That's
If
correct,
that's the
Mayor.
case.
There's no guarantee that
Yeah.
any particular one would be selected.
Okay.
The town could elect to not go with any of the submittals.
Great. I just want to make sure that that's out there and
Yeah,
everyone
they have to be
understands
in the
that.
boundaries.
Okay.
Part of the rules.
Yeah, you have to be in the town boundaries in order to submit.
That's gonna be my
That's
question.
very important for us to keep it within the community and the people and the residents that live here. So we would probably have some kind of vetting for that. They would have to provide their address and all
Yeah,
that.
provide your address.
Okay. Okay. I think we're in, Councilmember Tyler, do you have any thoughts or are you good?
No, I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Can't wait to see the social media AI warriors out there.
Yeah.
That's a good point. We want real people.
So I think staff, you have your kind of direction on that one.
Thank you.
Okay. I was wondering if the council needed a break before we get into the town code. So why don't we take a 10-minute break? It is now 9:01, so we'll be back at 9:11.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
All of them are scheduled, but we've started scheduling interviews. I must have misspoke. I think the only ones that's good.
I'm finance major, yes. I don't think I have a conflict.
I got an email. I'm gonna do the timer.
Okay, thank you. We're gonna get back to our agenda. I'm gonna make a decision here. We're gonna table item number H due to time constraints. We will, move that to our next, meeting, which is, what's the date on that? February 4th of 2026. We will, move the draft town code articles 4 through 6 to that meeting. So at this time, item number 8, is there any future agenda items the council would like to see or have? Any at all? Okay, hearing none, we will move to item number 9. This is call to the public, citizens desiring to speak and do so. We will limit our comments to 3 minutes per person, subject to any adjustment that might need based on our time constraints tonight. Hopefully not. So we will start with first. I have some cards that citizens have filled out. We will start with Donna Hallman. If you could please come up and state your name and that you do live within the boundary of Santan Valley. Donna.
Hi, Donna Holman, Santan Valley, live at the Concrete Community Association. I'll make this quick. I just wanted to say I haven't been able to attend to all the meetings. I've attended quite a few. You guys, I watched the ones that I miss online. You guys are doing an incredible job, impeccable kind of timing. And I'm passing that out, to everybody that I meet and talk to please get involved. You guys do care about the public. Even for all of us that didn't want incorporation at one time. Times change, as do needs. So we need to be part of the solution, not a part of the problem. So I've been extremely involved in that, but I just wanted to once again say thank you. Brent is great. I've listened to him. I don't know him personally. I'm surprised it's an Arizona native, but I've heard his name over the years. But, and I'm glad to see Garrett was appointed. Thank you very much. Continue the good work.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, next one, Jeannie Stockton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. There's a couple of things I want to point out. I already texted Neil Carter in regards to HB 277A to include Santan Valley. Number 2, Florence is only open 4 days per week because of the loss of state share revenue because we incorporated. Is the town of Santan Valley going to be open for business 5 days per week, or will we only do 4 days per week until we can get, more funding? And do you know if they reduce the hours worked or just reduce their operating expenses? Like, are they still working 40 hours per week, or are they just shutting down the operating expenses of their building? And in regards to some of the comments made tonight, I want you guys to make sure, because I'm using this as a byline when I talk to people, that we need to ensure taxes are based on need and not greed. So as we move forward with things, don't tax just because you can. The PRTA taxes, they were collected in Santan Valley. Is there any way that you can get a breakdown from the county to give you an idea of how much that PRTA tax was collected, to give you an idea if we would charge 1%, what your tax base would be? And then the last thing I'd like to point out, I met James at a recent event in Queen Creek or Santan Valley, whatever it is, I'm not sure. And they have a beautiful building there called the Old Cotton Gin Building. And James is going to make a speech here also, but I just wanted to say it would be nice if we could bring that building into Santan Valley and declare some of the history that has been garnered in this area over the many, many years. So that's all I have to say, and I'll let him say the rest.
Thank you, Jeannie. Actually, next up, I will have James Ballantyne. Please state your name and if you live in the Boundary or not.
All right, my name is James Ballantyne. I do not live in the Boundary. I live in Mesa. I've lived no more than 4 miles from the place that I was born my whole life. But I am spending a lot of time in Santan Valley. We have taken over the Big Ten Cotton Gin. We've been there about 7 years. Currently, the building is going to have to be moved because of the development that's happening on our corner. And we have been given the building, and we would love to bring it down here. And the reason is it's your building. Quite honestly, Santan, Queen Creek, this area exists because of this building and buildings exactly like this. This was a cotton gin, was put up in 1950. And Mr. Schneff's family sold their cotton there. There are the Robesons. There's so many names of cotton tickets that we found in our scale house, which is now a coffee house, Americano Ammunition Coffee. And we just really love this building. I found this building on my own, trying to use it for an event. And we were given the opportunity to take it over, and we built it into an amazing wedding venue. It's an event center and a wedding venue. I'm sure it's at Ocotillo and Meridian. I'm sure you've seen it. It is by far and away the premier wedding venue anywhere in this valley. And we have destination weddings coming from all over the country. This is your family's heritage. If you grew up here, if you are any one of the named streets is on your last name, you grew up knowing this is a cotton community. This was a cattle community. This is the heritage of this entire area. And to get rid of this building, to tear it down would be a travesty to the history and the heritage and the families that came here for 5 and 6 generations and worked day and night to create what we all get to enjoy, what you get to be the first mayor of, what you all get to be the town council of, the newest big little city in America, is because of the heritage of this building. I spent 9 months converting this building into a wedding and event center for my wife to run. And we have all kinds of events there, not just weddings. We do proms, gun shows, coin show, toy shows. You know, Pinal County holds one of their largest meetings there. It'll be on Friday. Every truck from Pinal County will be everywhere around there because this is a community space that is yours. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We appreciate you being here, Kevin. Or James, sorry. Kevin's next. Kevin Ballantyne, please come forward, state your name and if you live within the Santan boundary.
I'm Kevin Ballantyne. I do not live in Santan Valley. I wish I did. One day, hopefully, interest rates go down maybe. But I just want to follow up on what my dad said. We have this business that has been a really good anchor for the town of Queen Creek for a long time. And being that the property has been sold and it's being developed, we have the ability to take this building down. And we think that it would just be a really good place, a really good fit would be in Santan Valley. I actually looked at my shirt and I realized that before we were incorporated, we were Santan Valley on that corner. So we really feel that it would fit this area. We just would ask that as the town council and everybody starts to come up with the design guidelines and different things, take into consideration old buildings that don't look like every other building that's not corporate. Just to kind of give us the opportunity to be able to come to you and have a different idea and something that's just not the same as on every other corner. So I just want to say thank you for letting us sit in. This is a great insight to starting here in Santan, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to speak, and hopefully we get to work with you in the future and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. Okay, next one is Rita Ann Easy. Okay, thank you. Please, 3 minutes, and if you state your name and if you live within the Santan boundary.
Good evening, Mayor Schnipp, Vice Mayor Hudgens, members of the council, members of the public, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Rita Ann Eze, and I serve as the Director of Public Relations and Community Engagement for the Florence Unified School District. Thank you for the plugs for Post and Butte, but can't wait to see you on Tuesday. I'm here to share an update on our financial realities and how we are choosing to move forward. Because of the majority of our Florence Unified Schools are located in Santan Valley, it is essential that this community has a meaningful voice in the district's decisions. Your residents are our families, and this community is deeply connected to our schools. The most recent election, voters considered two propositions that the Florence Unified School District put out. The first, allowing the district to sell land that will not be used for future school construction, and that passed, giving the district a tool to help stabilize finances over time. The second was a bond initiative for major capital improvements, and that did not pass. As a result, the district does not have access to those funds and is now facing a $5 million budget deficit. This challenge is driven largely by declining enrollment, an issue affecting all districts across the state of Arizona, not just Florence Unified, not just Santan Valley. Other continuing contributing factors include the long-term effects of COVID, the expansion of ESA vouchers, declining birth rates, increased charter school options, and the loss of federal funds that previously helped offset enrollment declines. A proposal was presented to our FUSD governing board that included potential school closures or consolidations. But at our December governing board meeting, families, staff, and the community shared their concerns and ideas. Those voices mattered, and they were heard. As a result, Florence Unified School District, unlike other districts across the state, no decisions will be made in the 2026-2027 school year. Instead, the district is forming a steering committee to study options and make recommendations to the superintendent and governing board. Over the next 9 months, the committee will examine potential school closures or consolidations, possible reconfiguration models, and the feasibility of a 4-day school week, using data and research, as well as community input to guide its work. Community members are encouraged to participate in Santan Valley, as well as Florence. Those interested in participating on one of those steering committees can complete an interest survey that can be found on the Florence Unified School District's website. These interest surveys must be submitted by January 28th, and the first steering committee meeting will be held virtually on February 9th. And again, this will continue for the next 9 months. All meetings will be virtual. Our schools belong to this community, and this community deserves a seat at the table. Thank you for your partnership, your support of public education, and your commitment to Santan Valley students and their families. Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. Appreciate you being here. That's it for my comment cards. Is there anyone else in the audience that would wish to come forward and say anything? Please do come forward, state your name, and that you're a resident or not of Santan Valley. 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Karen Roney, and I am in the boundaries of Santan Valley. I just have a couple of concerns of some discussions that were brought up tonight on the lights with the traffic impact studies that were discussed. One of the things I've been talking to the county about and concerns is the left-hand turn lane, not only the red and green arrows, but also offsetting those lines. There was a project Chris Wanamaker discussed with me that was going to possibly try and move those over, but there isn't enough room. So going forward on some of these, you may want to look at that. And also the timing of the lights. When it's flashing yellow, I can make it. That's what you hear. I know people run the red light, but a lot of people think they can make it. And I know one of the concerns is backing the traffic up. But when you have lights every 30 feet, that's going to happen anyway. But, and so with that, the county has been very helpful in trying to come up with some ideas and stuff like that. So that's just one of the things that I had brought up, as well as, I never remember what you call them, but like the dividers, so that you can only turn out of a project that doesn't have a light, right? And go down and turn around somewhere where there is a light for safety issues. Bella Vista is the first one. There's 8 intersections that go into that one. Impact fees are very important. I learned when I first moved here that the impact fees had been waived for Banner Hospital. And that was huge. And that is just something that I heard. I haven't heard directly from county on that, but as I first moved here, I was like, oh, we have a hospital. That didn't happen. And so I think that when they mentioned that the ball had been dropped years ago, that was a huge one. And lastly, planning and zoning. For you to review the packet is very important before it comes to B and Z in my experience. If you make a decision that you want to change, especially a major change to a stipulation, the Board of Supervisors normally will then send that back to planning and zoning to review. That has happened on some cases when it goes to Board of Supervisors. So when you're looking at something, if it's a minor tweak, it's not going to be an issue, but really look at those stipulations because you may want something specific. And once it goes to the Board of Supervisors for them to change it or have staff change it, they'll ask if we've already reviewed it. And if not, it might have to come back to us. So that's why I was kind of sitting on my hands. I just want to say when you were discussing it, that at least review it. So if there's something major, your mayor can attest to that, having to come back sometimes. So, but that's all. Thank you very much. And I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Karen. Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to come forward? Anyone at all? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment. And I will say that I'd like to direct staff to maybe reach out to James Valentine and kind of discuss the options that he might have within Santan Valley for that building. It is something that, yeah, my family did go to, and I was wondering, you know, it's a landmark. It's kind of historic out here for the farmers of the day. And I think with the last comment about P&Z, that is a good statement that if there is a stipulation to be changed, Board of Supervisors can push it back to P&Z and then the process is moved forward. So maybe we address that going forward.
I was gonna add the same thing about the cotton gin. I'd love to hear a presentation on that, some background, and then just some general economic development opportunities, and using this as an example of how we can track more things like this to Santan Valley.
Okay, with that, these are the comment cards. That will take us now to item number 10, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Looks like the ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. I mean,
to the CAP stakeholder.
I didn't get it.
Appreciate that.
Well, you would have to. I mean, I don't know. I thought it was gonna be. It's a building. And
I didn't get anything specifically.
Good, I'm James Valentine.
but after